And we are live. Welcome to the MLB Deeper Dive. It is Friday, July 1st. I am Josh Engleman. I am joined by Adam Scherer, and I realized that I shouldn't have taken a sip of kombucha before I started this because I have to burp. We are brought to you by Odds Shopper. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. And if you didn't like the beginning of the Deeper Dive yesterday, boy, are you in luck. Adam, what are your thoughts on the Rudy Gobert trade? Who needs baseball?
So I kind of laughed when we started the show because I pulled up YouTube and went to click on the show so I could see chat. And I see the MLB show is live and I clicked on it and then X'd out of it and was like, oh, like thinking, oh, wait, no, I need basketball. I wonder who's doing the baseball show today. And then I was like, oh, yeah, that's still me. But
we are doing the basketball show today.
Yeah. Seems like Eric is not a fan of this trade based on his use of capital letters and banning people in chat. Yeah, Minnesota gave up a lot. Like, I'm a big Rudy Gobert fan. I think that the people that were blaming Utah's poor playoff defense on him are absolute morons. And that is a lot to give up.
Eric, would you rather have this trade or something live tour? I don't know what the rest of the joke is, but you just fill in the blanks for me. I think that's the way to do it. It is a wild trade. I would rather have Andrew Wiggins. Yeah, I mean, look, he's trying to time me out. That's not how this works. Oh, hey, by the way, you want to time me out for 5 minutes while I'm on the show? Please, man, hop right into the. You know the Zoom link.
Time me out too, please.
You know how to get in here. It's very interesting. Like Minnesota is infinitely better than they were an hour ago. Clearly. Before we get started in baseball, we're going to do 2 minutes here. Let's rank the West teams right now, and basically until we get to Minnesota. The Golden State Warriors are better than the Minnesota Timberwolves.
I can't even remember who's on these teams.
I got it. I'm going to bring it to you. You just agree or disagree with me. The Golden State Warriors.
Sure.
They are ostensibly a better team than Minnesota right now.
Oh, so we're doing better than Minnesota. Yeah, agreed.
The LA Clippers.
Yes.
The Phoenix Suns. TBD?
Yeah, it depends if they get Durant.
Oh, well, I mean, depends what they do with Ayton, really, to me.
Well,
like
right.
If they have Ayton or get an asset back for Ayton, I still think it's the Suns. The Lakers. I couldn't do that one with a straight face. I'm just kidding. Does Minnesota host a playoff series next year? That's sort of the question. Like, we're starting. Better? I think Memphis is better. I'm nervous about Jaren Jackson, though. 4 to 6 months is a very, very long time. So TBD on Memphis. If Jaren Jackson can be healthy, the answer is very clear to me, very clearly Memphis, but we'll see. Dallas.
I don't even remember who plays there anymore other than Luka.
I mean, it's Luka, so.
Yeah, I just couldn't remember if they'd picked up anybody else.
I think I prefer Minnesota, but we're talking about a Dallas Mavericks team that was just in the Western Conference Finals. Denver.
I like Denver.
So do I. A lot of question marks. Murray coming back, MPJ coming back. The actualized version of Denver, I prefer to Minnesota. So we're starting to name a bunch of teams. The New Orleans Pelicans with the returning Zion Williamson. Who's better?
Minnesota.
Interesting. Okay. Don't forget, it is a Pelicans team that had some verve against the Pels or against the Suns without their best player. Something to think about. I think we're out of teams now. It's not Sacramento. It's not Portland. It's not OKC. It's not Houston. It's not the Spurs. I don't know if Minnesota is favored to host a playoff series next year. That's a lot to give up to Rudy Gobert if you can't solve that problem.
Oh, Dallas got Christian Wood. That's what I was trying to remember.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't need to mention, though, really, that Dallas has Christian Wood and JaVale McGee. Those are not the same kind of names. Better? Wait. Yeah, I definitely don't think Utah's better. They could be. If you tell me that Utah signs DeAndre Ayton and he comes to Utah, I think there's a reasonable case to be made that they could be as good as Minnesota. I don't think that that's true. And I'll take Minnesota. I take Minnesota in that scenario. But Utah is now armed with assets to not be bad if they don't want to. I just think they're going to try to be bad.
Right.
Here we go. 2 minutes. 2 minutes. That's all we need. You ready to do this?
What is KD going for if Gobert got 4 picks? Yeah.
France.
Entire organization.
Yeah.
Eric meant Denver, by the way, instead of Utah.
Yeah,
I don't know if you saw that rant.
If they played Gobert and Towns together, they're certainly playing Gobert and Towns together. They're not playing Gobert for 12 minutes.
Yeah. How else would they be doing this?
Yeah.
Karl Anthony Towns is the new starting 4 for the Wolves. Right. Towns is the new starting 4 for the Wolves. Right. Are you ready to start the show?
We both think that do you think they trade Mitchell?
I don't think that they're doing this to keep him. Although if they are trading for Ayton, it at least puts everybody sort of on the right time span. And then they have a shit ton of assets to make some moves otherwise. They can put a good team around Donovan Mitchell by making another move. I assume Mitchell wants out if they don't do something quickly. And I don't know where he goes. I have no idea where Donovan Mitchell gets traded right now. Minnesota's spacing is going to be horrible.
Cat shot 41% from 3 last year.
Yeah, no. I mean, I hate D'Angelo Russell, but that's the one thing he can do.
Who's starting at the 3, Eric, if it's not Kyle Anderson?
Their floor spacing hasn't changed. They were either going to have Jared Vanderbilt doing this. Yeah. Yeah, nothing. It literally hasn't changed. I mean, you lose Beasley on the second unit, who was just a great catch and shoot guy. But I'm so happy Pat Bev got traded. I hate that dude so much. Whatever makes him unhappy makes me happy.
McDaniels. Okay, yeah, that works.
What do you mean for
He said McDaniel starts instead of Slow-Mo.
Oh, I mean, either way. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, Slow-mo feels more like a second unit ball or like creation guy.
Yeah, I kind of just forgot that McDaniels existed.
All right, let's get this one started. We have 52 minutes. Pirates and Brewers. 3.1. Hit that like button too. That was a fun start to this show. 3.1 run implied total for the Pirates, 4.3 for the Brewers. Roansy Contreras and Corbin Burns. Nothing has changed here since this morning. Corbin Burns still 44% owned, completely warranted. Contreras at 2. I actually have Contreras coming out a little bit more interesting than he was when we talked about him earlier today. 6,800. It's fine. I think he's pretty comparable to Brad Keller at no ownership, but I'm not like highly enamored here. The star is Corbin Burns.
Yeah, as far as Contreras goes, he's really talented. There are strikeouts in the Milwaukee lineup, but you're probably just not going to need the savings all that much, and I'm not going to like just play Contreras for the sake of it. He's struck out about 23% of hitters this year, which is nice. He's walked too many guys, has a 4.25 or 4.27 xFIP. But the talent's there. Like if you land there at low ownership, that's a perfectly reasonable guy to take shots on just based on the upside. But for sure, Corbin Burns on the other side. Great matchup against the Pirates. Great pitcher. Leads the slate with a 32.5% strikeout percentage. 2.78 xFIP is one of the best on the slate. Highest owned pitcher and certainly should be.
Do you have any updated thoughts on Contreras? Because I didn't really care for him, or I didn't care at all this morning, but a lot of strikeouts in the Brewers lineup.
Same, I mean, I just ran through it, but same thoughts I had this morning. You know, he's low owned, he's talented, he's cheap. That typically means that I'm not going to be upset about using him in tournaments, but I doubt that I just end up needing to get that much of him.
The Pirates bats are dead last in aggregate ownership right now. Seems to make some sense with Burns on the opposite side. Brewers, though, fourth in value, 7th in top stack. How are you feeling about Milwaukee? Because I see them as just a bit overowned.
Yeah, I mean, they're really cheap, so there's good value there. It's still kind of a scary spot for me just because Contreras is so talented. It's not like this is a bad pitcher. It's just a volatile, young pitcher that is likely to end up eventually being very good. But I do like the pricing. Rowdy Tellez in particular at 3,400 is going to look good. Colton Wong is cheap. So far this season, Contreras has allowed a 198 expected ISO to left-handed hitters, 274 to righties. So there is power upside going up against him. I mentioned Milwaukee specifically in my FanDuel tournament video earlier, just because they are a little bit more expensive. So they were projected to get a little bit less ownership than on DraftKings.
Okay. Any cash options in the Brewers lineup?
Probably not. If Tellez ends up in there or Wong ends up in there, it wouldn't be shocking. But I said it this morning, and I think it's still the case. This is one of those completely mispriced Coors Field games where your cash lineup is going to be close to, it's going to be a ton of guys from that game. So anybody else is kind of going to just be like, oh, well, he's cheap enough where maybe he ends up in there. But it's hard to say that like anybody else is a clear priority for the most part because it's going to depend on which Arizona guys you use.
To the Mets we go. 5.1 run implied total there for New York, 4 for Texas. Chris Bassett and Glenn Otto. Otto isn't owned, and he shouldn't be. Chris Bassett, did I paste ownership incorrectly? Did he get scratched or something?
Who?
Bassett?
Yeah, he got scratched. He has COVID.
Missed that one in all the news. Who do we got going for the Mets?
David Peterson.
I think I saw his wife in labor or some shit.
Yeah, we have David Peterson going, and his wife might be giving birth like as soon as he gets off the mound.
My bad, y'all. It's hard for me to care about things that happened 2 hours ago when Rudy Gobert gets traded to the Minnesota Timberwolves. Any interest in David Peterson today?
Not particularly. He's, I believe, 8,600. The matchup against Texas is okay. He's a decent pitcher, 22.7% strikeout percentage, 3.87 xFIP, but I don't anticipate getting to too much of him. We have him with about 9% ownership on DraftKings. That seems reasonable.
What's he going, like 5 innings? Four, a little over 4 innings? 5 innings. 5 innings works.
Depends how he pitches.
Thanks, man.
I mean, like, I don't think he's like hard capped or anything.
You know why I'm asking. I'm not asking for your thought process on his end game for today. I need a baseline for outs.
Okay, so he threw 104 pitches last time. He threw 100 the start before that.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, 5-ish.
That works. That works for me. I needed you to be like, it's not one inning.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at. Was like he's not only going 4 innings. If like he gets to 4 innings and he's pitching fine, he's not just coming out.
All right, let me run my new crunch. Well, I was going to say, let's talk about Bassett here because he was a very interesting option. Goodbye, Bassett, in that regard. So, Mets bats are 6th in aggregate ownership against Glenn Otto. That's got to be something interesting. 5th in top stack. Be happy to get to some Mets.
Yeah, for sure. They were in both of my top stacks videos earlier. It's a good spot against Otto. He's only struck out about 18.5% of hitters this year. He's allowed over 1 home run per 9 innings. He's got a 5.12 xFIP. The Mets don't have the most power in their lineup, but they do still have Lindor and Alonso that have power. You have a relatively inexpensive Nimmo and McNeil from the left side. Mark Canha's only 3,300, so I still like getting to the Mets here.
Alrighty. No cash options in that Mets lineup, correct?
I don't think so because of course.
Any interest in the Rangers bats? 14th in aggregate ownership. 9th in top stack, though. Kind of a big time gap. Pretty expensive at the top of the order, though.
Yeah, I mean, the matchup I think gets a little bit better now that they're going up against Peterson, but he's still not bad. 119 expected ISO to righties this year, 269 to lefties, but he's thrown less than 200 total pitches. Going back to the start of the 2020 season, 175 expected ISO to lefties, 172 to righties over the larger sample. So just a pretty solid pitcher. There is power in the Rangers lineup, but nothing that really stands out here. You do have Jonah Heim hitting 4th for 4K. That's kind of nice, but nothing that stands out, especially when you look at the DraftKings pricing and you have Adolis Garcia at 5,800 and you have Corey Seager at 5,800. I mean, those are really expensive prices.
Yeah, those are big time numbers. I got my new crunch with Peterson done. 12%, actually.
Yeah, that seems reasonable. We have them at like 9.
Okay. At a quick glanced 5 innings, whether or not that's accurate right now, we'll figure that out later. But yeah.
Like when you look in that price range, it's pretty much Blake Snell against the Dodgers, Alex Cobb, who's getting the most ownership, or Peterson. Like that's kind of all that exists.
Right.
Oh, Joe Ryan, forgot about him. But he's also getting ownership.
All right. I got everything.
I don't think there's a big difference
loaded.
between Peterson and Snell if you're in that range and not going to one of Cobb or Ryan.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think Snell, Peterson, and Cobb all look, and Lance Lynn to a degree, all look pretty similar. Hell, and Marco Gonzalez, honestly, if we want to stretch that out over like a full $1,000. Anything else here, Mets and Rangers?
Nope.
All right. Well, this should be pretty easy for you guys. Schedule for the rest of the day as follows. MLB Live Before Lock is coming up next at 6 p.m. We've got the MLB Top Stacks tool, which is free. We're going to talk about that every single game we mention throughout all of this. So keep your eye on that. Go straight to stokastic.com if you want to check it out. UFC Pro Plays are also free. Guardians and Yankees. This is the first place where we have a little bit of weather that we need to pay attention to.
Looking better than this morning, I think. Yeah,
keep your eyes peeled on this one. Not exactly a great spot for weather, but I think we might be okay. 3.4 run implied total for Cleveland, 5 for the Yankees. Aaron Savale and Garrett Cole. Savale not owned at all and really shouldn't be against New York. Garrett Cole, 24% owned right now. We're talking close to half the ownership to Corbin Burns. More in line with Christian Javier, who's $1,600 cheaper. How do you feel about Cole now, particularly without Bassett on the slate?
So I hate the matchup because Cleveland is above average offensively in terms of production, but more importantly, they have a 17.2% strikeout percentage on their active roster. Steven Kwan doesn't strike out. Jose Ramirez doesn't strike out. But you're still talking about a pitcher in Cole that has struck out 31.8% of hitters this year, 2.83 xFIP. He's one of the highest upside options anytime he's on a slate. And when you look at his ownership relative to Corbin Burns, I don't think he's getting quite enough. Burns is clearly in the superior spot going up against Pittsburgh, but like if you look at the top pitchers tool, we have on DraftKings Cole with a 22% chance of being a top 2 pitcher, 27% for Burns. On FanDuel, 10% chance for Burns, 9% for Cole of being the top pitcher. But on both sites, you're getting like double the ownership going to Corbin Burns. So I understand he projects better. He's who I will go to more frequently, but I don't think that Cole's pulling quite enough ownership relative to Burns, given that they are very, very similar pitchers in terms of ability.
Yeah, I'd like to get a little bit more Cole at this point. Just to, we freed that up, and I think it's going to be easy to find bats. I think there's enough value out there. Yankees are fifth in aggregate ownership, fourth in our top stack tool. Other than Aaron Judge, everybody's like 6-7% owned, or you get all the way down to the 2s and 3s. How do you feel about New York against Savali?
I really like New York here. You're going to get enough ownership going to the Coors Field game and going to Minnesota that I think any other team is just going to be relatively low owned. It's a good spot, I think, against Savali. He gives up power. So far this year, he's only struck out 19.2% of right-handed hitters, 222 expected ISO, 226 actual ISO allowed. That sets up really nicely when you're unlikely to be striking out Aaron Judge or Giancarlo Stanton. Donaldson's reasonably priced. You have Rizzo from the left side. Torres has some power. So I do like the spot for the Yankees. I like the fact that they're facing a pitcher that doesn't get a lot of strikeouts and does give up a lot of power. You good?
Yeah. Tim McMahon had a tweet, and I didn't know what it was going to say. I wasn't ready for it, but it was just that Christian Wood is open to the idea of starting at the 4 alongside JaVale. So nobody gives a shit.
Yeah.
For Cleveland, Jose Ramirez seems to be the only guy getting any ownership, and I don't really have anything to add to that. That seems like the correct thing.
Yeah.
Tigers and Royals. 4.3 run implied total for the Tigers, 4.2 for the Royals. Michael Pineda and Brad Keller. Pineda not getting any ownership. Has been named the official starter, though. Keller, 9% owned. To me, he's the guy you go to if you really need to pay all the way down, because when you get to face the Detroit Tigers and garbage offense, that's what happens. You become mildly viable. I don't have anything else to add on that.
This game does have probably the most concerning weather, at least right now. So definitely keep an eye on that. But yeah, I'm with you. It's just Keller's not a very good DFS pitcher. He's only struck out 15.3% of hitters this year. He's a decent real life pitcher, 4.3 xFIP. But the matchup's really good, and he's just underpriced, assuming that the weather cooperates.
Yeah, looks good. The Royals bats are 8th in aggregate ownership. The Tigers bats are 9th in aggregate ownership. Which one of these teams are you more likely to be rostering today?
Kansas City, just because I think that they do have better players. I mean, you have Bobby Witt, who's always one of the higher upside shortstop options. You have Pasquantino now hitting cleanup at 2,400, so that's pretty nice. Merrifield's always a strong second base option. Benintendi's reasonably priced. Dozier's reasonably priced, hitting 5th. So I think I get to Kansas City before I get to the Tigers. It does also look like it's... Oh, never mind. I was looking at the wrong column. It's like 80 in Detroit. I thought it was like 60, but... reading the wrong thing. On the other side, Riley Green leading off is a good value at 2,400, but it's just a lot more difficult to talk about guys that I like on the Detroit side than on the Kansas City side. Plus, you also get Michael Pineda coming back from the injured list. He's just been a really enigmatic pitcher for a while now, where he's completely capable of just being absolutely awful any given start. And then you add in the uncertainty of his first start back. So I do think it's a pretty high upside spot for KC.
Okay. There are no cash bats that I see on either the Tigers or the Royals here.
Yeah, I don't think so. You're probably just not going to need the savings to Pasquantino or Riley Green.
How are you, this is sort of a general question, and obviously we've got an hour and 40 minutes until lock, but do you see yourself approaching your lineup construction differently based on weather?
I mean...
are you seeing anything right now that's going to cause you to remove a game or discount anything?
I could maybe see just not playing the Kansas City-Detroit game, because it looks like it seems likely that they're going to have to late start if they play, and it is a divisional game. It's not difficult for these teams to figure out when they can make it up. So that would be a concern for me. Right now, not particularly concerned about the Yankees game.
Works for me. We're going to Coors. Rockies, 5.9 run implied total. Diamondbacks, 5.7. Before we get to it, hit that like button, everybody. We're about to talk about the goods for today's slate. 580 viewers, just 90 likes, not nearly enough. We should be up around 150 at this point, so reward us with those thumbs ups. Antonio Senzatella and Merrill Kelly going in this one. No ownership going to either guy, although per Sean V, Antonio Senzatella is going to spin a gem in Coors today. We will not talk about either pitcher. I don't think that that's really reasonable. Diamondbacks are first in aggregate ownership, first in our top stack tool. The Rockies are third and second in both of those categories. We'll start with Arizona. How do you want to handle the chalkiest team of the day?
They're clearly great values. You're getting to this team a ton in cash. I think that goes without saying. And in tournaments, they're still good plays. It's just a matter of you need to pay attention to the rest of your lineup and how you're balancing it out. It's more likely for me that I use smaller mini stacks of these guys, pair them with lower owned offenses. But also, like when you're talking about if you're somebody that multi-enters, it's likely. Like if I were to end up playing a lot of Arizona, it's likely that I'm getting more contrarian with my pitchers, maybe not getting as much Burns and Cole as I would like, and getting more of Contreras or Snell or guys like that. But I think that these guys clearly project really, really well. You have Alec Thomas hitting second at 3,500. That looks like a fantastic value. David Peralta's a reasonable value hitting fifth. Buddy Kennedy's hitting seventh, but he's still only 2,200. Carson Kelly's a $2,100 catcher in Coors Field. So just top to bottom, there's very good plays here. Ketel Marte is the only guy in this lineup above 5K on DraftKings.
Oh, man, I'm just going to have so much Arizona. When all is said and done, what is your prediction for the amount of guys in a cash lineup from this game?
From the game, so probably
either
five.
Side.
Probably 5 from Arizona, and then I would guess at least 1 from Colorado. So I would guess I'm getting like 6.
Okay.
I haven't crunched a cash lineup, but I did after the show this morning sort of just like build one by hand. It had Pavin Smith, who's not in the lineup, but I had in that one I had 5 Arizona guys, 1 Rocky, and 2 Twins.
Craziness. Let's talk about the Rockies side of this one. They're easy to get to. Only CJ Cron is north of 5K. Blackman at 4,900. Otherwise, these guys are not priced like they should be in Coors. Now, they're not a good offense either, but that's besides the point here. Do you approach Colorado differently than you approach Arizona?
A little bit, just because the ownership's more reasonable. Merrill Kelly is a better pitcher than Senzatella. Senzatella is not horrible, by the way. Like he doesn't miss bats. He's only struck out 12.5% of hitters this year, but he doesn't walk guys. He has a 4.25 xFIP. So kind of just putting that out there too, where he's not good. And I'm not saying like you should be afraid to take hitters against him, but he's not Spencer Watkins or anything. Kelly is better though, and the Rockies lineup isn't great. But so far this year, Kelly has had some issues with lefties, at least in terms of his expected numbers. So 192 expected ISO compared to 120 actual ISO, only a 19% strikeout percentage. You look at the Rockies lineup, you have Blackman hitting second from the left side, McMahon at only 3,500 hitting sixth. Those are the only 2 left-handed bats in the lineup though. Against righties this year, 21% strikeout percentage, 151 expected ISO. The ownership here is lower than it is for Arizona. It's nice that you can get Brendan Rodgers at 8%. You can get Randall Grichuk at 5%. Those guys both have some power and are nice ways to be contrarian, but they're also just going to be more difficult to get to than the Diamondbacks because the Diamondbacks are cheaper and have the better matchup.
Yeah. Just a wild game right now. I have the Arizona Diamondbacks first. I've got the Rockies third, so I'm sort of in line with the current ownership. 2 bad offenses too. It's really crazy. Oh my God. It's just going to be a hell of a game. It's going to end up being some sort of pitcher's duel 2-1 joint. I can see it already.
One side note here, just because it's happening in chat, and it happens all the time, and I know we've talked about it, but like you're going to be better at DFS the quicker you can get yourself to stop like predicting what's going to happen in games. Like,
yes,
it's all probability. It's not this guy's going to do well, this guy's not going to do well, this is going to happen. It's really just chances of success versus what the field is doing. As a general rule in baseball, whenever the field is heavily going to 1 or 2 offenses, in tournaments, you can just go elsewhere because there's so much volatility in baseball. But like getting your mindset out of this like binary, they're going to do good or they're going to do bad, trying to guess what's going to happen in a game. Like you're just going to be better as soon as you stop thinking like that.
Right. Like Arizona is the highest owned stack on the day, and everybody knows that. We have them being the top stack 15% of the time. 85% of the time, they are not that. Obviously, some of the time they're second or third, and you're not mad that you had them or anything along those lines. But we're talking about like 70% of the time, they are not the team that you needed to have for today's slate. You cannot look at a baseball game and think, well, that's the team today. They're going to be the best. That's just not how this works. Great point. Glad you brought it up. We probably don't say things like that enough.
Yeah, I mean, like,
because it's the most important thing.
Right. And that's the case for all DFS sports, but especially baseball. Like basketball, it's still the case, but at least basketball, you know that barring foul trouble, injury, blowout, this guy's going to play, give or take, a minute or two, like 35 minutes or whatever it is, and he's likely to get X amount of shots, give or take a couple. But football, it's, he might get X number of targets, but it really just comes down to, does he land in the end zone after one of them? Baseball, it's, does he hit a ball over the wall? It's just, it's really difficult. And I say this because like I had a hard time with it when I first started doing shows, because I would do a show and then I would try and build lineups. And after being on a show and being like, this pitcher's in such a great spot, blah, 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 it's just in my head that like this guy can't fail. And it's like, oh, I don't care that he's 60 something percent owned. I'm just going to play him because how does he fail? Like, you really just need to not think in terms of like, he's definitely going to do this or that.
Yeah. Anything else you want to touch on Rockies and Diamondbacks?
Nope.
I want to say great rant, but I don't mean rant the way that it sounds. Here's a rant for you. Odd Shopper is the best thing that we've got going, and it's a completely free tool for you. And if you don't use it, you're making a giant mistake. How's that? They are the presenting sponsor of this show. If you're betting on sports, and I hope that you are at this point in time, make sure you're taking advantage of any offer that we ever show you. But you have the ability to shop around for lines. Odd Shopper, as the name states, makes that very easy for you. If you're leaving any sort of good line on the table and you have the opportunity to take something better, you're only costing yourself. It doesn't affect anybody else other than you. Nobody needs to put more money in a sportsbook's pocket. Take advantage of the line shopping. Take advantage of the player props that we have posted, where we show you the projection, the expected ROI, the expected win rate, the amount of hold on the bet, if you just want to know that. And you can go directly to multiple books if you need to. All of that is at your fingertips. All of it is free. Again, free. This is outside the Stokastic Plus package. You just go to oddshopper.com and get everything that you could possibly want from a sports betting perspective. There's additional features and stuff that I haven't even detailed out yet, but I hit you guys with the best ones. Please take advantage of it. Oddshopper.com is going to help you. There's no way around it. All righty. Here we go. Game 6, Astros and Angels. 4.5 run implied total for Houston. 3.5 for the Angels. Christian Javier, Michael Lorenzen getting precisely 0 ownership. Christian Javier is your second most owned pitcher at 31%, part of that core 3 of Cole, Burns, and Javier. How do you feel about Javier? Where does he rank for you in that group of 3?
So it seems like he just kind of got a bunch of Bassett's ownership, which makes sense because he is at a different price point than Burns and Cole that Bassett was kind of at as well. So I get why the ownership's there. He projects well. He's struck out a lot of hitters overall this year. 31.8% strikeout percentage is actually identical to Garrett Cole. As a starter, he's at 29.9%. Not as good a pitcher, just in terms of run prevention and everything else. He walks more guys, but he's still a good pitcher. He's still facing an Angels team that has plenty of strikeouts on their roster. The obvious issue is that 1 through 4, and particularly 1 through 3, is very, very good. You have Ward, Trout, Ohtani to start the game. That can do a lot of damage in a hurry, but overall, it's a good spot. Good spot for Javier. The price tag's a little bit cheaper than it should be. And on top of that, there's just not a lot to pivot to in that price range. Like, you have, Joe Ryan for $400 less, but Ryan's getting 15% ownership as well. You have Snell against the Dodgers for a little bit less, but clearly a bad matchup there. Cobb is getting ownership for $900 less. So it's kind of just a price point. Like, he's actually the only pitcher on DraftKings between $9,000 and $10,000. So, that's another reason why he's just going to pull a decent amount of ownership.
I'm grabbing updated ownership right now. It's been 30 minutes, but I don't think that I had this updated one. You said Ryan was at 15%, and that is not what I had.
It's possible that I haven't updated.
Okay. Well, I never saw him at 15. So yeah, you're right.
Okay.
Something I know you don't hear all that frequently. Had to. We don't have to talk about Lorenzen. I don't know what we have to actually talk about in this game. Are the Astros interesting to you? Because this is the team that is 13th in aggregate ownership, but also 13th in our top stack tool. Are you going to Houston? It feels like we should be going to more Houston.
I really wish Alvarez was playing today because it's a really good spot for left-handed power. But he's not. I do like Kyle Tucker a lot. He's hitting third, which is nice. He's 5,300. We got Jeremy Pena back, so the lineup looks a little bit better than it did yesterday. But Alvarez missing here just does make it, I think, more difficult to get to this team. It's also very right-handed heavy. The only lefties are Tucker and JJ, however you pronounce that name. I'm not even going to try. So that sets up, well for Lorenzen. So far this year, Lorenzen's allowed a 218 expected ISO to lefties, but only 102 to righties. So individually, I really like Kyle Tucker. I'm never going to tell anyone not to stack the Astros because they're still a good offense even without Yordan Alvarez. But no Alvarez, no Brantley. It's just not as appealing a stack as it typically is.
Speaking of unappealing stacks, I can't imagine getting to much Angels, although there are obviously bats that work.
Yeah, the Angels are sort of just always in play when Ohtani's not pitching because if 3 of the 5 guys in your stack are Taylor Ward, Mike Trout, and Shohei Ohtani, there's nothing wrong with that ever. You throw Jared Walsh in, and now you're at 4 of the 5. So from that angle, they're fine, but Javier is not a pitcher that I'm going out of my way to target here. Against lefties this year, 158 expected ISO, 25% strikeout percentage. Against righties, 143 expected ISO, 39% strikeout percentage. I kind of just feel similarly about the Angels as I do the Astros, sort of. Not to say that their offense, top to bottom, is as good as Houston's, but I'm never going to tell anybody not to play Alex Bregman, Kyle Tucker, and Jose Altuve together. I'm never going to tell anybody not to play Taylor Ward, Shohei Ohtani, and Mike Trout together.
Yeah, I think we're in the exact same boat here. It's a weird game. Like, there's a decent chance I have Javier and maybe a little Kyle Tucker, basically nothing else. And I don't expect to have much of the Tigers, Royals. There's a lot of games and a lot of teams that you can draw like a very clean line through today. And let's just say you approach the slate with that idea, one of those teams is probably going to score like 10 runs.
Yep.
I got nothing else here. Let's go to Twins and Orioles. This line has climbed a lot since this morning. 5.5 run implied total for the Twins. No?
It should.
Why would it make me feel dumb?
Because of your Baltimore Orioles hatred.
I said I liked the Orioles stack today.
You said they were like the worst offense in baseball or something.
I said they were the 6th worst offense so far this year. And then you were like, well, I only count the hitters that I want to count when I say that their offense is good. So whatever. 5.5 runs for the Twins, 3.9 for the Orioles. More owned now than earlier today. Joe Ryan going for Minnesota. Spencer Watkins going for Baltimore. Joe Ryan coming in a crisp 15% owned. I actually think that he should be in slightly more lineups than that, but we'll wait on it. Spencer Watkins, not good at all. He's like the bottom half of the Baltimore lineup in that he's atrocious. Talk to me about Joe Ryan in this spot, particularly now, again, another guy that's interesting without Bassett.
Yeah, it does make him look a little bit more interesting. And Baltimore's lineup is a little bit weaker than we expected. No Trey Mancini. He's replaced by Ryan McKenna. McKenna, 79 plate appearances this year, has struck out 39.2% of the time. Last year, 197 plate appearances with the Orioles, struck out 37.6% of the time. The guy is absolutely awful at hitting baseballs, and he's right-handed. Ryan has pretty drastic splits this year. 15% strikeout percentage to lefties, 27% to righties. He's allowed a 247 expected ISO to lefties, 157 to righties. So you still have 5 total lefties in the lineup for Baltimore, but one is Rougned Odor, who has some power but also strikes out plenty. One is Arias, who is not a great hitter, hitting 8th. Getting McKenna in this lineup in place of Mancini is a really nice plus for Joe Ryan.
Team Joe Ryan, as I was earlier today. I don't change my takes. Just smart from the beginning of the day. Let's talk about the Minnesota bats, because clearly we're not talking about Watkins. Big time ownership going to 2 through 5. Buxton, Correa, Kepler, Polanco. That shouldn't be all that surprising. Ryan Jeffers also pulling a lot of ownership as a very cheap catcher. They are 2nd in aggregate ownership right now, 3rd in our top stack metric. What do you want to do here with Minnesota? Because they're very interesting, and I'm really curious to see what your thoughts are in relationship to the Coors Field game.
I really like the spot for Minnesota. Like, Spencer Watkins is hands down the worst pitcher on the slate. I think like the guy is terrible. So I do like Minnesota here. They are getting ownership. They're the third team that's pulling ownership. We actually have them with a little bit more aggregate ownership than Colorado, but it's also sort of player dependent. I clicked Baltimore instead of Minnesota, I think. Why can't I find? I don't know. My ownership projections are messed up right now. But you have Carlos Correa, at least earlier in the day, you had Carlos Correa pulling a lot individually.
22.
Right now, yeah, so Correa is at 22%, Buxton's at 25%. You do have a lot of ownership going to Jeffers, Polanco, Kepler's up to 10% now, Kirilloff's at 9%. So the ownership has come up a bit throughout the day. This morning, I think Kepler was like 6 or 7%, and Urshela was like 5%. So that does make them a little bit less appealing, but it's a really good spot. Spencer Watkins this year, 350 pitches thrown to righties, 240 to lefties. Since the start of last year, 685 to lefties, 865 to righties, 339 expected ISO to righties with a 12% strikeout percentage, 153 expected ISO to lefties with a 14% strikeout percentage. He has been better, clearly, at limiting power to lefties, but that's not to say that I don't want to play Max Kepler or a cheap Polanco or a cheap Kirilloff against him. But from the right side, I think Carlos Correa is the top shortstop option today. Both of the shortstops in Coors Field are bad at hitting, so that helps out there. Byron Buxton's one of my favorite payoff options. Absolutely love him. Jose Miranda, 2,500 at first base. You can't play him and Kirilloff together on DraftKings, but he's another highly regarded prospect that is really cheap and in a good spot.
Yeah, this Minnesota team looks really good.
Agreed.
And like, it's really not, oh man, there's actually like low owned options that could really offset this lineup too. And give me Buxton and Correa at ownership. I don't give a shit. They're good. Like getting to the Twins. Are you more likely to get to twin stacks than Rockies or Diamondbacks?
I think it's close.
I feel like it's easier, like from a ownership perspective, it's easier to put together a Twins lineup than Rockies and Diamondbacks lineup. Maybe that doesn't really matter all that much.
They're higher owned than the Rockies. But the thing that's nice is that like you cover some weaker positions with Minnesota. Correa covering shortstop is nice. Like grabbing one-off shortstops isn't typically the most exciting thing. Polanco covers a relatively weak second base position. Ketel Marte does as well, but he's more expensive. Jeffers is, I guess, similar to Carson Kelly, where they're cheap, they're heading toward the bottom of the order, but they're clearly underpriced. So I do like, from a stacking standpoint, that Minnesota has one of the best shortstop options and one of the best second base options.
Let's talk about the options on the Baltimore Orioles, who are basically unowned outside of Cedric Mullins in the leadoff spot. Getting slept on a little bit here against Joe Ryan, or no?
I think so. I mentioned the struggles Ryan's having with lefties this year, not striking them out and giving up power to them. There's not a lot of lefties in Baltimore's lineup, or good ones, I should say, but Mullins, Santander, Rutschman, all three, I think look really, really good here. Really like Rutschman as a lower owned catcher option. We know that there's massive upside for him there, and he's only getting 4% ownership. Mullins is at 7%, Santander is at 3%. Rougned Odor does have power. He's 2,800, getting 2% ownership. And then even though you're going to prefer left-handed bats, that doesn't mean you can't go to Ryan Mountcastle or Austin Hayes. Both guys have massive amounts of power from the right side, and you're getting no ownership. So I do like the idea of getting to the Orioles here. They have a lot of power, at least 1 through 5 in this order.
I've got some interest in the Orioles as a low-owned stack. I can't help it here. The top of that, the first 5 or 6 guys are just lethal combination when you're trying to put them in a lineup. So make sure you get to them, guys. Anything else here for your Baltimore Orioles?
No, just really hoping I get to these left-handed power bats because I haven't made lineups, but would really, really like to be getting there.
I got to give you guys a promo code. It's a good deal. You guys shouldn't sleep on it. Before I give you this good deal promo code, how about we get you guys to hit the like button one last time on this show? 695 concurrent viewers right now, 162 likes. There's no reason that we can't get 38 more likes to get that number up to 200. Because if you use the promo code MLBDD, one big word, all caps, 50% off your first month of Stokastic Plus Platinum. It covers everything we have across every sport that we offer. So if you're into baseball, you get our projections, ownership, top stacks, top pitchers, top batters. There's probably more baseball tools that I don't even know about. Lineup Builder as well, premium Discord. It's not just baseball, though. You can hop in for every single sport that's offered. Let me read the top bar on Stokastic.com. Obviously, I'm about to name some sports that aren't playing right now, but MLB, PGA, racing, so NASCAR, Formula One, MMA, USFL, which I believe is done. You get things like League of Legends and Counter-Strike and all that other good stuff. Best ball content that exists. Clearly, we cover the NBA. Clearly, we cover the NFL. We cover college sports. You guys can check out everything that we have to offer behind the paywall for 50% off using the promo code MLBDD. Again, one big word, all caps. It's not really a word. There aren't even vowels in it, but you know what I mean. And 700 viewers, 187 likes. You guys should be ashamed. To the Dodgers we go. 4.2 run implied total for the Dodgers, 3.3 for the Pods. Tony Gonsolin and Blake Snell going in this one. Neither guy really pulling all that much ownership. It's pretty low. I have both guys just shy of 10% in my optimals. Do you get to more Gonsolin? Do you get to more Snell? Do you want to get to these guys at all?
I think they're both really similar in that they're not getting as much ownership as they probably deserve when you just look at top two pitcher percentages. But at the same time, if you already have lineups where you're contrarian, it's really tough to make a case to play Tony Gonsolin instead of Corbin Burns for $300 more. Like, they're not close in terms of talent. Gonsolin's good. He has struck out 24.5% of hitters this year, 3.8 xFIP. He is a little bit more stretched out, going a little bit deeper into games, but still not on the same planet as somebody like Burns. I actually like Gonsolin a little bit more on FanDuel, where he's 9,400, so you get a little bit more of a price discount there. The Padres lineup is middle of the road. As far as Snell goes, it's certainly a very, very risky spot going up against the Dodgers. They have a lot of right-handed bats. He's only struck out 22.5% of righties this year. They have a lot of power, but he is a pitcher that we know has really good stuff, and throughout his career has been able to get strikeouts, even if those numbers are down a little bit this year. So at the reduced price, if you need him in a lineup here or there, he makes some sense, but I don't anticipate being able to prioritize either of these guys, especially on DraftKings. Again, I think Gonsolin looks a little bit better on FanDuel.
Yeah, 9,400 for Gonsolin on FanDuel. 80. Wait, you think Gonsolin looks better on FanDuel?
Yeah, he's $900 less.
Did I not refresh salaries? I got him as $1,000 more expensive.
Okay, we have him at 9,400 on FanDuel and 10,300 on DraftKings.
Oh, $900 cheaper than himself. I thought you were referencing that in relationship to Blake Snell, where he's $1,000 more expensive. See where I'm going with that?
Yeah, but the gap between them is also bigger on DraftKings.
Sure. I don't really like either of them, but I was just curious why you were saying Gonsolin over. Like, to me, I was just like, I don't really want to go to Gonsolin or Snell on FanDuel.
Yeah, no, I was saying I like
Gonsolin at the top.
I like Gonsolin more on FanDuel than I like Gonsolin on DraftKings.
Perfect. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, it was just one of those things where I was looking at it, I was like, I can't imagine you actually want to get to Gonsolin on FanDuel knowing where everybody else is at the top. All right, let's talk bats, though, in this one. Not all that often that you see the Dodgers coming in 12th in aggregate ownership out of 20 teams, but that's where they are. It's even more surprising to see that they are 14th in our top stack tools. So is this a Dodgers day for you, or is this one of those days where you just don't get to what isn't totally like an all-star team today?
Yeah, I mean, they're not pulling much ownership. I do think that they're appealing just because Snell has that blow-up potential where he walks a lot of guys. But the other thing is that, like, if you're walking a lot of guys, you're working typically behind in counts too. And the Dodgers have so many good hitters that can do damage if they're ahead in the count. On top of that, I mentioned it a second ago, but only a 22.5% strikeout percentage for Snell against righties this year, 178 expected ISO. I'm interested in the Dodgers. I still don't know that I have success actually getting to a lot of them, though.
Yeah, I don't get the sense that I'm going to have much here either. I mean, there's a couple, like, if Trace Thompson is not owned, he's more interesting than not owned, but
yeah,
Taylor, I don't have much to say.
Taylor at 4,500, Turner at 4,600 both seem like decent prices.
And on the Padres side, they're dead last in ownership. They don't have a high top stack odds. I don't really want to get to the San Diego Padres either.
No, I have a pretty difficult time getting to the Padres here. Gonsolin's a good pitcher. The pricing isn't really favorable on the Padres either. You do have a $2,100 Mazzara if you wanted to go that route, but like Profar at 5,100, Manny at 6,100, Cronenworth at 5,700. I'm good.
All right, 2 more games to go, folks. Did you guys get up over 200 yet? 195. You guys are asleep at the wheel. Mariners and A's. 4.8 run implied total for the Mariners, 3.7 for the A's. Marco Gonzalez and James Caprillion. Gonzalez, 11% owned right now. Kind of just in that same sort of tier with Lance Lynn and Cobb and Peterson. Obviously, like slightly different salary structures here, but do you agree with the Gonzalez ownership? Are you okay with this? I now have the Oakland A's with the worst lineup on today's slate.
Yeah, I'm fine with it just because he is 7,400, so you are getting a little bit of a price break off of Alex Cobb. He is similarly priced to Lance Lynn, but the matchup's also good. Marco Gonzalez sucks. I mean, there's no real way around that. He struck out 13.5% of hitters this year, 4.91 xFIP, 1.5 home runs per 9 innings allowed against right-handed hitters in particular, 13.3% strikeout percentage, 185 actual ISO, 199 expected ISO. But you are in a decent park to pitch in, only about a 3.6 implied run total for Oakland. Not going to be a good lineup. So I understand why Gonzalez just shows up in 10 to 15% of lineups.
Yeah, I don't have much to add here. Oakland lineup stinks. Decent strikeouts at the bottom half of this lineup. Not that Marco Gonzalez is that kind of guy, but
Marco
certainly
doesn't
helps.
suck. If you don't think Marco Gonzalez sucks as a starting pitcher in Major League Baseball, you just don't think any starting pitcher is bad.
Yeah, he's the epitome of like a fifth starter innings eater.
Like he used to be better than he is now. He's never been a good strikeout pitcher, but he used to be at least better at preventing damage, and he's not really good at that anymore either.
Yeah. Over his last 200 innings in the past 2 seasons, he's been worth 0.4 wins with a 4.91 and 5.16 xFIP. I mean, there's not a lot here. He ate up 370 innings in 2018 and 2019, and that was pretty valuable.
Not surprisingly, the same person followed up with Cole will give up 5 runs. So kind of the level that I was expecting.
Yep. Some people can't be saved, man. Mariners bats, 8th in ownership, 7th in top stack. James Caprillion on the opposite side. Bottom of the order's cheap. I mean, yeah, bottom of the order's cheap. What do you want to do here?
If you need some value bats, I don't mind taking them against Gonzalez just because there is some right-handed power. Piscotty's 2K, most likely hitting towards the middle of the order. Murphy's got some power at catcher. Same goes for Bethancourt, who also has first base eligibility. But it's going to be tough to really prioritize getting to a team as bad as Oakland.
Wait, what?
Well, I don't know what you asked me. I just talked about Oakland's bats.
Yeah, and my pitch to you was, are you interested in Seattle bats against Caprillion?
Okay, well, I answered Oakland, and now I'll do Seattle. Yes, I am interested in Seattle because Caprillion also not good. He's been worse than Gonzalez this year. 15.8% strikeout percentage, 5.32 xFIP. Gives up a lot of power. He's allowed 1.9 home runs per 9 innings. Seattle's got a nice lineup. They still have Winker and Rodriguez in. Crawford serving his suspension. 181 expected ISO allowed to righties for Caprillion this year. 268 to lefties. You mentioned it this morning. There's a lot of multi-position eligibility in this lineup too, in addition to cheap pricing, specifically Abraham Toro hitting 3rd with second base and third base eligibility. That's nice. Dylan Moore hitting 7th at 2,900 with first base outfield is also nice. You have Haggerty at the bottom at 2K flat with second base and outfield eligibility. So there's just a ton of different ways to stack this team. Rodriguez, Winker specifically is the top option for me. He's gotten off to a really slow start with Seattle this year, but his expected numbers, expected WOBA, expected ISO are quite a bit better than his actuals. And he has, a track record of being a good hitter. So I think it's a situation where you're getting Winker at a discount because of what he's done as opposed to what he's likely to do moving forward. So I really like him. Rodriguez is extremely expensive, but also really good. But then, the bottom of this, the middle to the bottom of this order, Santana, Toro, Frazier, Moore, not the most exciting hitters, but just really cheap and facing a bad pitcher.
Care to recap whatever nonsense you said about the A's when it was unprompted?
No, because I'm sure people still heard it.
They were probably pretty confused too, and they got a lead in about the Mariners. A's are 2nd in top value. Is there any value to you in knowing that?
Yeah, there are some good enough cheap hitters here in a good spot against Gonzalez, but It's just going to be difficult for me to like prioritize getting to Oakland because overall they're not very good. But Stephen Piscotty in particular at 2K, if he's hitting fifth, is going to look solid. Sean Murphy as a catcher option looks okay, although there are so many really cheap catchers today that you're kind of paying up even at 3,900 for him.
Anything else you want to touch on here in Mariners and A's, or do you just want to on your own go on to Giants and White Sox?
Yeah, I'm gonna just do whatever I want. So you can ask me anything.
It seems it. Anytime you want to do whatever you want and just let me know that I don't have to be on the show, that would also be great. 4.1 run implied total for the Giants, 3.4 for the White Sox. Alex Cobb going for San Francisco. Lance Lynn going for the White Sox. These guys are basically the same ownership. Cobb coming in $700 more expensive on DraftKings. Cobb actually $200 cheaper on FanDuel. Don't know how much that totally matters. I mean, Cobb's like 10% owned, so I guess it matters a little bit. Who do you prefer between Alex Cobb and Lance Lynn?
Slight edge to Lynn just because he is a little bit cheaper. Neither pitcher has a particularly good matchup, but both of them obviously pitching in a very, very good park. San Francisco's offense, or their active roster this year, only a 21.8% strikeout percentage, 112 WRC plus. White Sox a 19.9% strikeout percentage, 102 WRC plus. Cobb has the fourth highest strikeout percentage on the slate at 26.5%. 2.7 xFIP is the best on the slate. Lynn has only made a few starts so far, but he's doing what he normally does, striking out 23.5% of hitters, 3.33 xFIP. Cobb threw 80 pitches last time out, so I assume that you're going to be able to get him up around 90 pitches or so, like functionally not limited if he's pitching well. Probably still doesn't give you like complete game shutout upside, but for all intents and purposes, I'm not expecting him to really be limited here. So I think both guys look good. I just give the slight edge to Lynn because he is a little bit cheaper. And when you think about, just talent, he's basically the same price as Marco Gonzalez. His strikeout percentage is like 10 points higher, and he's getting 16% ownership instead of 12%. I understand the matchup is better for Gonzalez, but they're not even remotely close in terms of pitching ability.
I'm with you on that one. Let's talk bats, and I think it's pretty quick. The White Sox are 16th in our top stack tools, 16th in aggregate ownership. Neither one of those things look appealing to me. Is it more appealing to you? Does the Cobb ownership help?
Shane Hall said Lynn is better than Cobb. Not sure about that. What Cobb has done this year is better than Lynn for sure.
Steamer has Cobb by a half run in fifth. That's a really big gap.
Yeah, Cobb's been extremely good. But yeah, I have a hard time getting to either offense. They're hitting in San Francisco. Both pitchers are good. If you wanted to look to lefties against Lynn, that's kind of always been a thing. Wade, Yastrzemski, Peterson, Belt, all of those guys individually, I guess, make some sense. But it's a big enough slate with enough bad pitching that going out of my way to get to Lance Lynn probably isn't going to be where I'm at.
All righty. Yeah, Giants bats. I actually like the Giants a little bit more than we're showing. They are fully unowned. I don't like the idea of targeting Lynn. I don't like the idea of going to this park, but every one of these guys showed up for as 4% for me, which is big in comparison to 0.5%.
Yeah. I mean, they have
at the same time, I don't think it matters.
Yeah, they have power. I'm fine, with one-offs or mini stacks, but I think it's gonna be tough to get a lot of San Francisco.
We've got 3 minutes and change before we got to get out of here. So I'm going to open up the floor to any questions you guys have, whether that is in YouTube chat or in premium Discord. I'm going to hop over to the baseball channel right now, see if anybody's watching, see if anybody's listening. If you have a question for myself or Adam, and let's be honest, they're obviously for me, please go ahead and drop those in chat now. And YouTube chat, I might actually answer a question that you guys ask. Look at that. Because we have enough time. Give me your favorite stacks and your favorite pitchers, though.
Corbin Burns, Garrett Cole, assuming the weather cooperates. Those are clearly the top. Javier is kind of in a price range by himself. Outside of those three that are getting all the ownership, I think I would say Lynn at 7,600 because of the salary discount. As far as top stacks go, I really like the Yankees, again, assuming weather cooperates. I like Minnesota if you can find a way to offset their ownership, but I guess that obviously goes for the Coors Field game as well. But staying away from those three offenses that are getting all of the ownership. Really like the Yankees, like the Mets, like the Mariners.
All right, we're gonna
like
hit
Baltimore
these.
lefties.
We're going to hit these real quickly. All right. Poe Degen Stoner. Oh my God. Poor Poe Degen Stoner. Ketchup on eggs. Where did you ever land on that debate?
I normally don't, but I think it's fine.
Okay. Do you think the Lakers land KD or Kyrie? I think they're getting Kyrie.
Kyrie, possibly.
Yeah. On days that you aren't doing content, how early do you start your prep work? An hour before? Maybe less? Depends which sport.
Whenever lineups come out, I just start stuff. Like I don't prep anything.
Baseball, late. NBA, got to be early.
Yeah. And NBA early because like I do my like minutes projections by hand and stuff. But baseball, like I don't do prep work. I don't look at anything. Like if I'm not doing content, I'm not sitting here like going through and looking at anything. I'm just waiting for lineups to come out and then crunching stuff.
If lineup block is at 7:05 and I don't have anything for a deeper dive or a live before lock or anything before that, I would probably sit down at like 6:15.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I do.
Do you prefer to stack road teams because they will they will play 9 innings, or is that not good logic? It's not good logic. It's good logic to think about it. It's not good logic in that it should be already accounted for in any projection system you have.
Yep, exactly.
It's good that you think that now, and 5-6 years ago, there probably was a mild advantage to that people weren't taking account for, but that's long gone. Let's see. Indica or sativa? I don't care. I know that question really doesn't matter to you. How likely is Miami getting Donovan Mitchell? We'll close on that before we get out of here.
That's for you. I have no idea.
I'd be very surprised, given the fact that it just took basically 5 first-round picks and other things to get Rudy Gobert. I don't know where Miami gets enough assets to do that. I don't know how they get there. It clearly has to include Tyler Hero. And at that point in time, like, I don't know if Tyler Hero is like a better asset than, I don't know, like some of the stuff that just went out in Minnesota. So that makes the most sense for where he should go. I just don't know how they pull it off. Let's get out of here. 6:00 on the dot. MLB Live Before Lock coming up next. If you haven't hit the like button yet, do it now. Enjoy your 4th of July weekend, everybody. Have some fun, but be safe. We'll talk to you later.
Holiday weekend coming up. Hope you guys have some good plans with your family for the weekend. But before we get there, we've got baseball bets to talk about. Friday night slate. Like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Last night, we went undefeated. We won all of the picks in the video, and the only way to replicate that kind of success is the good luck that comes with liking this video and subscribing to the YouTube channel. Also, leave a comment below. You guys know that I like to hear what you guys are betting on, and nobody left any comments with best bets yesterday. Let me know what it is that you guys are betting on. I really do like to hear from you, either to tail you guys or just kind of go back and forth and really think about what it is that you guys have in play. So leave that below in the comment section. Also, if you have any winning bets, screenshot them to me on Twitter, and I can get you a free week subscription to a premium betting Discord if you send me some winning screenshots. But without further ado, these are the best bets for Friday night's MLB slate. Start us off, I'm going with the hottest dong pick of the day, and that is Juan Yepez plus 450 to homer today. Yepez has shown a lot of power as a young hitter for the St. Louis Cardinals. He's plus 450 to homer today. If you look at the projections we have over on OddsShopper, 24% chance to homer, good for a 30% expected ROI. So let's look into some of these numbers with Yepez and really try to figure out why he projects so well to homer today. And for starters, he's facing a left-hand pitcher who's had his struggles at the big leagues this year. Bailey Falter of the Philadelphia Phillies. He's a somewhat well-regarded prospect in the organization, but he's also 25 and hasn't really made it up to the big leagues much to this point. But from what we've seen of him, it hasn't gone all that well. So far, a total of 29 big league appearances, 53 innings. So some as a starter, some as a reliever. And overall, the numbers there, 5.2 ERA, 4.66 FIP for Falter. And he's also shown to be a pitcher who's home run prone, a 34.1% ground ball rate. So most of the balls against him getting hit in the air, and a 13.9% home run to fly ball rate. So already these are red flags for a pitcher when it comes to giving up power to opposing hitters. And then Juan Yepez, like I said, he's been a really good right-handed power hitter for the Cardinals this year. 134 WRC plus. He's hit 9 homers in limited at bats. So all of that looks pretty good for Yepez in terms of his power upside. And he's also been in the lineup a little more frequently for the Cardinals as of late, multi-hit games in 2 of his last 3 starts. So Juan Yepez looks like a strong young power hitter for the St. Louis Cardinals going up against a lefty who's seemingly homer prone based on the limited sample size we've seen. So I'm going to side with Juan Yepez here, plus 450 to homer, the hottest dong pick of the day. If you guys want some free money heading into the holiday, I've got good news for you. BetMGM is giving away $200 for free when you sign up for the first time. Here's all you need to do to take advantage of this offer and claim your $200. You sign up over at BetMGM, either using the promo code OSMLB or sign up using the link in the description box below. Then you head on over to BetMGM, make a deposit, bet $10 on any MLB money line, and they're going to give you $200. That is all you have to do. That'll give you some good money over the holiday, maybe some hot dogs, fireworks, whatever it might be that you're going to get into for the holiday. Take advantage of this $200 free from BetMGM. Alex Cobb is on the mound today for the Giants pitching against the White Sox, and I really like his strikeout prop over 4.5 Ks plus 115 odds. Now, when it comes to Alex Cobb, there's 3 cycles that we're going to find Alex Cobb in at all times. He is either injured, about to get injured, or recovering from an injury. And when he's recovering from an injury, this is the time that we want to jump on Alex Cobb because he's low-key been a very solid pitcher this year. The ERA isn't great, but a lot of it's just because of bad luck. He may have a 5.48 ERA, but he's a 2.33 expected ERA, a 3.22 FIP, and he's striking out a whole lot of guys this year, which is what we like when we're looking at an over for strikeout props because Cobb this year, 26.5% K rate. That is the best mark of his career, and he has a pretty solid matchup against the Chicago White Sox. The White Sox this year, 88 WRC plus against right-hand pitching. That is one of the worst marks in the American League. So this is a spot for Alex Cobb where if people are just looking at the normal stats like ERA and not doing a deeper dive, you might think, well, Alex Cobb is a pitcher who struggled this year. And then you also might just look at the name value of the White Sox and assume the White Sox have a good offense. But neither of those things are true. Alex Cobb has just been unlucky, and the White Sox offense hasn't been particularly good. So with Alex Cobb working his way back from injury, couple starts under his belt, no expectations of any kind of pitch restriction today, I think this is a good spot to buy low on Alex Cobb and get plus money on over 4.5 strikeouts. Have you guys paid attention to Isaac Paredes as of...
I play anybody from New Jersey? Trout's from New Jersey, right? Or Philly. He's from Philly.
Philly, yeah. Well, I think he's technically... What's going on, guys? It is the Stokastic MLB Live Before Lock Show. We're sponsored by Odd Shopper today. If you haven't done so already, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. To answer your question, I think Mike Trout is from Southern New Jersey. So
I thought he was from New Jersey in the back of my head. That's something I had.
So I think he's from Southern New Jersey, but he's a fan of all Philly sports because he's from Southern New Jersey, which is pretty close to Philadelphia. Like it's much closer to Philadelphia than it is to New York. So I think anyway, I don't know. I don't know all the ins and outs of Mike Trout, but big day for Eric because his Minnesota Timberwolves have traded a shit ton to land Rudy Gobert. Rudy Gobert, I love Rudy Gobert. I think he's really good. He's had some inconsistencies in the playoffs, and there's times where the Jazz haven't been great in the playoffs, but I think this is a good move for the Timberwolves for the near future, not the distant future, for the near future. I think you're well set up. I think the Timberwolves are going to compete for the title this year. Eric, the floor is yours. How do you feel about your Minnesota Timberwolves? And then we'll get on to what happened with your Live Golf fallout.
I feel fucking awful, okay? Here's how I feel. I don't feel good, okay? We got a bowl of French fuck. I don't know what to make of all of this, okay? Rudy Gobert, in a small ball situation come playoff time, I don't know what to make of it. I think we could be a really good regular season team, but there's a couple of major factors. One, Denver, about to get ridiculously good. MPJ, if you get him back healthy and you get Jamal Murray, people forget about Jamal Murray being a top 30 player, maybe one of the top 3 players in the bubble during that run in 2020. Recency bias, he's out for a year. Show your dick at Christmas, and there you go. Jamal Murray, everybody kind of forgot about that. Google that, by the way, in case anybody doesn't know what I'm talking about. Secondly, Golden State has an asset on their basketball team that would work perfect alongside the Minnesota Timberwolves. You know who that asset is? Andrew Wiggins would be perfect with this basketball team. This is the ultimate thing that we do in Minnesota is we hit the panic button. Everybody sounds like me. Everybody sounds ridiculous. And we remove
the number one consensus pick in Andrew Wiggins, the trade Kevin Love, you'd ship him out. Kevin Love gets a ship there with LeBron. So we're happy for Kevin Love. Yay, everything's great. We get Wiggins and, it doesn't fit in perfectly at the time, but we basically were asking him to do things that didn't make any sense. Did anybody watch the NBA Finals? Andrew Wiggins was exceptional. And I'm not saying that he couldn't have been that in Minnesota or, maybe he just needed a change of scenery or something. But we needed a wing. We needed, if you're going to go for somebody, go for DeJounte Murray at the guard spot. D'Angelo Russell come playoff time. Who is he going to guard? How are you going to play a pick and roll when they take Cat and they take D'Angelo and they just basically say, we're going to play small ball. If Rudy Gobert wants to come out here, joy to the world. We're going to knock down threes a la Clippers, a la every team that's ever faced Utah in the playoffs. I don't understand. I get wanting to make win now moves. I get it. Rudy Gobert is the best defender in the league when it comes to baskets at the rim. But the guy is incompetent when it comes to a Golden State or a Denver matchup. He will not be able to be out there in a pick and roll situation with Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr., and Nikola Jokic. He won't be able to be out there on the perimeter with Klay Thompson, with Steph Curry, with Draymond Green. He cannot do it. It's not good.
All right, I'm happy I got you wound up. I don't even know if I want to do this to you again now and bury you for what happened yesterday. So for those of you who are unaware, yesterday we had a little bit of an incident. We're just about to start the MLB Live Before Lock show. It's supposed to be you and I doing the show. And all of a sudden I find out Eric is unavailable to do the show today. He signed a contract with Live Golf. So I get some of the details. And the rumor is that Eric signed for $150, a cheese sandwich, and a hand job. The rights to give, not receive a hand job. That's where there was the mix-up in the Live Golf contract. As far as I am aware, you'd be a better source of this than me, Eric. But I was told Pat Perez showed up to your hotel room and there was an argument about who was supposed to jerk off who. The contract fell apart, so we're happy we got you back on the show. Eric, welcome back.
Thank you. The golf tour that must not be named, of the golf tournament I haven't watched one shot of. Hope they're having fun out there in Portland. Glad that everybody's having just a fantastic. Oh, weird how it hasn't been in the national media at all. Weird how it hasn't showed up on my feed at all. I thought it was this amazing popular tour that everybody wanted to watch. And is there just some amazing golf being played that I'm missing out on? Oh my God.
Well, I'll tell you what is filling up quickly. The contests that get posted in the DraftKings lobby, those fill up pretty damn quick because actually I don't know if those players. I haven't paid attention, but I know the first day filled up like 24 hours in advance. We'll see where it goes. I tend to think the DFS is going to die out for it. I don't think that the popularity for it's going to maintain. Maybe I'll be wrong. We'll see where that goes going forward. But there we go. We've gotten Eric really riled up in the first few minutes of the show. I feel like I've accomplished my job as a host. Now I've got baseball to talk about, the actual reason that we're here for today's show. I know some people might have been confused as they came in, especially if they've never been here before. Like, what the hell is this? This is a baseball show? Ish. It's baseball mixed in with Eric and I kind of making fun. Well, more so me making fun of Eric and Eric taking it like a champ and us creating the entertaining content. But we've got a baseball slate to talk about. And on the high end today, we've got my favorite pitcher in baseball. Corbin Burnes is also going to be uber chalky today. For you, Eric, how does he stack up against Garrett Cole, who's also going to be popular today, but not quite as popular as Corbin Burnes? On FanDuel, Corbin Burnes project for 29% ownership. On Garrett Cole, 14%. Over on DK, 41% ownership to Corbin Burnes. Garrett Cole at 25%. How are you handling these two stud pitchers?
First of all, this is a North Coast Brewing Scrimshaw Pilsner. It's delicious. I enjoy it. It's nice and light and refreshing, kind of like me and my takes today. That's the way that I feel about it. But also, here's what we got going today. This is what we're doing. We're jamming Corbin Burnes on FanDuel. We're just going to jam him. He's 10-9. That's not enough. 10-6. Garrett Cole's got 9.4% top percentage there. I'm paying attention to the weather. Doesn't seem like it's going to be all that problematic, but even still, I just value Corbin Burnes in such a higher way. Look at this baseball team. I mean, Corbin Burnes is the best pitcher in baseball. He has been for 2 years. He's your boy. The house that Corbin Burnes built over there in New Jersey for my friend, Greg Ehrenberg. So I'm just playing a lot of him on FanDuel. I ended up playing there yesterday because of the debacle that was AT&T internet in my life. So that was fun. Got somebody to come out here and take a look at it. I'm fully operational now. I'm going to play both sites for the first time in a long time. Yeah. That's the nice part about being in the analyst role. And I'm going to jam Corbin Burnes for DraftKings purposes or for FanDuel purposes. On DraftKings, I do find it kind of interesting that Christian Javier is pulling as much ownership against the Angels as what he is. I think he's fantastic. You and I have talked about him a lot. It's a fantastic strikeout matchup, no doubt about it. But I'm curious what you think about this Lance Lynn, Alex Cobb section, because this is kind of where I'm drawn for DraftKings purposes. If I'm getting away from Arizona, where Arizona, you can play Corbin Burns, Christian Javier, Garrett Cole, whomever you really want, you can jam Arizona. And that popular construction is just going to come to the top. But if you can just take away one of those guys, I feel like trimming Corbin Burns a little bit for DK purposes, getting to some Cole and Javier, and then dipping down to that 7-8K range kind of feels like what I'm going to do. Because I feel like if I play Cole and Burns or Burns and Javier together, I'm just going to be making the exact same lineup as everybody with Arizona stacks. And that doesn't feel good, even on a 10-game slate. So curious what you're doing, but FanDuel just jamming Burns.
Yeah. So for me, I don't want to say that it's because I'm biased, but all of the reasons that I bet Corbin Burns futures and I like Mustard because I think he's really good and I think he's the best pitcher in baseball. So I'm also just apt to play a ton of him every single time he pitches, especially when he's reasonably priced and going up against the Pittsburgh Pirates. So everything I've ever done in terms of how I've approached Corbin Burns, I guess you could say it's because of bias, but at the same time too, it's hard to say I've been on the wrong side of it. So I just continually going to play Corbin Burns and I don't see any reason to stop doing that. Like he's given me no reason to stop betting him to win future awards. He's given me no reason to stop playing him a ton in DFS. So I'm going to be differentiating at offense today. Pitcher, I'm just going to ride with the chalk because I love the spot for Corbin Burns. And there aren't that many cheap pitchers I like today. That's another thing that's really key is you start to look at some of the other pitchers we have on the slate. And we could talk about some potential pivot plays, but I don't want to pay over $10,000 for Tony Gonsolin on DK today. And then you start to go into some of the cheaper tier of guys. You mentioned Alex Cobb. I don't think he's a bad option. Lance Lynn, I think most people know where I stand on Lance Lynn at this point. I think there's a good chance he's washed. He did look slightly better in his last outing, but it still didn't go well overall. So I have concerns about Lance Lynn going forward. And I just don't know where I'm going to look for salary relief at pitcher. So I think for me, the best course of action is I'm going to pay up. I'm going to play the chalk at pitcher. I'll differentiate at offense. Is most of your or are most of your lineups going to be built around the high end pitchers?
So one of the high end pitchers, I mean, I'm going to get to one of them in lineups, but I'm saying that I think my point of differentiation has to be trying to find some kind of exposure to there. And let's talk through Lance Lynn, because this is a guy you and I both were targeting right out of the gate. We saw his AAA numbers. He was getting absolutely obliterated there. I wouldn't say it was super fruitful against that Toronto matchup. Thought that we could maybe get a little bit more out of the Toronto bats than what we got in that spot.
5 innings, gave up 5 runs.
I know, but I'm saying that he was in trouble a lot throughout that outing, and he induced a lot of ground balls above expectation. He's had 7 ground balls to 3, 9 to 3 against Baltimore there. Ended up giving a 5 earned there in Baltimore. Pitched 6 2/3, which is kind of crazy. So 109 pitches. Here's the thing. The main reason we didn't like him against Detroit was he was just trash, and we ended up actually having some Detroit bats that kind of doubled down for Toronto. We're now seeing him get up to 109 pitches. He's in the best pitcher's ballpark in baseball. Yes, does San Francisco have a competent offense? Is it a little bit better for the likes of the lefties? Whether it's Jock Peterson, you get Lamont Wade back, you get Tommy La Stella in this lineup, you get Brandon Belt back in this lineup. They look a lot better from the left side, and Lance Lynn has been markedly better against righties than lefties, so I get it. But my major thing is I'm looking at the ballpark and I'm looking at the pitch count. And if I'm going to have anybody rival the top end guys, 7,600 does a lot for me in terms of trying to get to some different type of builds. I think he's the kind of guy you can put up 20, 25 in this spot, in this ballpark. And there's really not a whole lot underneath him that I'm that enthusiastic to get to. So I get where the field, I mean, he's what? The 5th highest owned pitcher. It's not like he's completely unowned. I get David Peterson if you wanted to do that. He's had some really good results of late. 8,600 against Texas. You get the strikeout matchup there. I get it if you want to, but I think for $1,000 less, Lance Lynn is just a guy I didn't expect to be rostering as much as what I am today.
Yeah, so I have a narrative that's going to keep me away from David Peterson. His wife is expected to give birth at any point in time now. And he said that if she goes into labor during the game, he's leaving. He's not going to finish his start. So that gives me a lot of, I mean, it's obviously something that's really hard to predict, but it's enough to me where like, I think David Peterson's a little bit overpriced. And that narrative, that story is enough to keep me away from, like, I don't want to potentially pay $8,600 on DraftKings or $8,100 on FanDuel for a pitcher who pitches into like the 3rd inning is like, yeah, I got to go. So I can't get
complete game
Peterson.
shutout baby narrative though. Come on now. He's doing it for his firstborn, or is it his first kid? I guess that's kind of an important caveat.
I don't know. I will say this though. So my parents have 4 kids. I'm the oldest, and I know my dad was present. Well, my dad was present at all of the births. But if my dad had something more important to do by the time my sister was born, the 4th child, like he would have been off doing that. So I'm going to say based on what
I was the middle of 3, and my mom was in labor with me for like 10 minutes because I'm so easy and easygoing and relaxed and that, right?
Yeah, or they just baited you with something. They just held something out and you had to crawl out to grab it. Cheese sandwich. Live golf tournament on TV. You had to jump out to see what was going on, who was winning. Yeah, tip to tip. It could have been anything. A hand job from Pat Perez is on the other side. There's lots of things that would make Eric want to come out of the womb early.
The hair, I thought it was a nice lady. I couldn't tell.
But as for also, I have bets on the Rangers today because when Chris Bassett got scratched, I immediately put bets down on the Texas Rangers for today. But also, I just have concerns about how D. Peterson's going to go into the game with his situation. And then also, no prep time for this game. I mean, he found out, what was it, an hour and a half ago that he's going to be starting today. That's always a little bit of a concern for me when you're taking pitchers out of their rhythm. So no for me on David Peterson. And as for Lance Lynn, here's where I understand the appeal to him. He's been good in the past, and he looked good at the start of that game against the Orioles. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, too, the results are so poor for him this year. We've now seen him make 3 starts. His numbers for the year, a 6.19 ERA, a 5.08 expected ERA. The strikeouts have been lower than they were last year. Not terrible, though. 23.3% strikeout rate. The walk rate's been good at 4.1%. But if we do have to pull away one positive from these numbers also, he's obviously way cheaper than he's been in the past. Yep. So I could reason with it from an upside standpoint in terms of if we think he looked better last start, which he did. His velocity was up last start, but I'm going to be underweight to the field on him.
I'm going to be way overweight to Lance Lynn. I get where you're coming from. I think you can also get where I'm coming from. That's kind of the beautiful thing about baseball. It depends on what else you're trying to do with your lineups too. And for me, I'm just kind of willing to embrace the risk because he's the kind of guy that if he does have it going, you're getting. I mean, we only have 3 outings for him this season. I'm pretty sure in any sport for anybody, as you're starting to get your bearings, if you're an NFL player starting in week 10, you've been out the entire season. If you're an NBA player who's out for 4 to 6 months and you get back in March, like you're going to have some rust. Pretty sure we're watching some rust kind of wear off of him here a little bit. I do kind of get turned off by the fact that he had a really easy K-Pup matchup right out of the gate. Thought that would be a good thing for him against Detroit if you did see any upside. Toronto, not good. But then Baltimore, with all the righties that they can have in that lineup, I mean, you look at their lineup today against a righty and you're just like, well, if you can get by Mullins, if you can get by Santander, you should have a pretty good path to some strikeouts. And he's still kind of failed in that spot. Did get 8 strikeouts, though, against Baltimore. I'm just saying it's a guy that I think I just have to be massively overweight to the field on today for a little bit different reasons. I'll ask you this then. DK purposes, Marco Gonzalez or Lance Lynn, 7,400 to 7,600.
I mean, ideally, neither for me.
Okay, no, that's probably the right.
Like,
answer.
I don't have. There's not like some rule on this. Like, hey, you have to roster Lance Lynn or Marco Gonzalez. Of the 2 of them, it's Lance Lynn. And by the way, something else about Lance Lynn's numbers this year: he's had crazy easy matchups. He's pitched against the Tigers, the Orioles.
I just said that.
Yeah, so I'm pointing to because Terry's giving out some of his stats in the YouTube chat, but I do think we have to take some of those with a grain of salt just because of how easy the matchups he's faced have been in general, and still the underlying numbers don't look particularly great for it. I get that the 354 BABIP, there's reason to think that that's not something that would typically sustain, but his contact numbers, he's giving up a lot of hard contact. So
I get it. One other thing too, Shark Killer brought up that the wind's blowing out in San Francisco. Never look at that. The stadium is built on the pier in a way to suppress wind effects. So San Francisco, it's blowing out 12, 13 miles an hour. But if you look at any weather, if you look at anything that's happened in the ballpark historically when that occurs, there's not that big of a difference.
Yeah, it's I don't care about the wind in San. Also, it's the same wind basically every game. It's like 10 to 15 miles per hour blowing out to center, and it doesn't really impact anything all that much. Super chat from my filler arc. Marco Gonzalez and Christian Javier good pitchers today? ? I hate baseball. All right, so Christian Javier, yes. Marco Gonzalez, less so. Marco Gonzalez, for whatever reason, there ends up being a lot of slates where we get questions about him or he picks up ownership, and he really does nothing but suck most of the time. And the other thing, too, when it comes to Marco Gonzalez is that he doesn't really generate swing and misses or strikeouts. The one positive we could say about him today is he's pitching against the Oakland A's, but double-digit ownership for Marco Gonzalez, that seems crazy to me. Let's look at Gonzalez's numbers for the last couple of years. So he may have a 3.31 ERA this year, but the underlying numbers, 4.7 expected ERA, 5.38 FIP. Last year, he had a 5.02 expected ERA, a 5.28 FIP. So we did outperform his peripheral stats, or at least he has outperformed his peripheral stats each of the last 2 years. But it's hard for me to want to get to somebody who has a 13.5% strikeout rate and 8.9% walk rate and is picking up some ownership. So I get it. It's a good matchup against the Oakland A's, but actually if I had to pick one side of this, I'd be more inclined to stack Oakland than I would be to roster Gonzalez.
I'm with you. We will get there. I definitely well, the word isn't like. I don't like Oakland today. I don't like them. I can tolerate them, and I cannot tolerate rostering Marco Gonzalez, especially when he's got double-digit ownership. Like, it'd be one thing if he was 4%, and I'm like, all right, well, he's facing one of the worst offenses, if not the worst offense in baseball, and they're trash, and he's at home, and yay. But I'm more inclined to be getting to some of these Oakland bats. And I think there's a few of them that we can pick and make work, even for FanDuel purposes. I'm getting to Oakland a little bit. Yesterday, we were talking through the slate a little bit because I had some good lineups with randomly. I had some Michael Perez triple dongs and some FanDuel stuff where it was out of the middle of nowhere. And I kind of debated getting on some Laureano and onto some Oakland bats just because I was getting so far away from Gilbert. I knew I needed to try to make up ground. And so I went all the way to Musgrove as much as I possibly could. It was rational, got to like 40% of him and went to like 30% Gilbert. He ends up 55%. And I just think that there's enough good pieces from Oakland where they're not a complete trash team to get to. Now, I'm not going to open it up 1 through 9 by any means, but I think that there's enough there. And Marco Gonzalez is just that bad that I do want to just get to some pieces there.
Yeah, I think that's totally reasonable. We'll be talking more about some of those offenses in a second. And when we do, I think we're going, at least for me, I have to prioritize some cheaper offenses today because I like paying up at pitcher. Although with that said, by the same merit, the pricing's not all that restrictive on DraftKings or FanDuel today. But I still have to some extent, look at some of the cheaper offenses to get to. Yeah, go ahead. Miami Mike left a super chat. Go do your thing.
Hello, Greg. I've spared your life so that you can have terrible takes about the Minnesota Timberwolves. And in accordance, I will allow you to save your pathetic life. Just because your sister was the last born does not mean that your father loves you more. In fact, go Buckeyes at the Ohio State University.
All right. I hope you're happy with yourself, Mike. This is, by the way, whatever you feel about Live Golf is what I feel about that.
That's copyrighted now, man. You can't say the Ohio State University. That's copyright.
Yeah, there we go. Now we're going to get a copyright.
Screw them. That's absurd. Like, I'm going to say the word the. Word the. Sorry, Ohio State. You might own the, but I'll just say the, and then you're screwed. What?
That's a good point. Have they trademarked the or the? But you can't get all of them, can you?
Because when they say it, they say the Ohio State University, but the. I don't know. These are things I think about.
This is a whole bunch of nonsense.
Yeah, this is the go to Michigan with Rinpack. It's a better spot.
Yeah, well, she's not smart enough for that. But there's different avenues.
Great party, nice. Yeah.
Another BYU. Another super chat here from my filler arc. So who instead of Gonzalez, I would have $8,400 left. If you have $8,400, I would rather play Lance Lynn than Mark. Whoa, oh no, $8,400, Alex Cobb. Right? Who do you like? He is $8,400 to use a pitcher. If you could roster anybody for $8,400 or below, who are you choosing? For me, it's Alex Cobb.
I have some Alex Cobb. I'm just not all that enthusiastic. I just think there's such a massive ceiling on Lance Lynn, and I really the ceiling for Lance Lynn is really, really appealing for me. I don't think that can be understated. I don't know if Alex Cobb has that kind of I get the White Sox are so much better against left-handed pitching than right-handed pitching this season. It's not even funny. Look at their WRC plus against either, but I do see Tim Anderson back in the lineup. You have Robert and Abreu. You have enough guys, even from the right side against Alex Cobb, that should be able to create some kind of problems there. 26.5% K percentage. I'm just worried that Alex Cobb ends up more popular than what we have. I get it. It's really hard to kind of account for. If Corbin Burns just gets jammed, this is all kind of a moot point. You can just play whoever else you want. They're probably going to be under own for DraftKings purposes. That's kind of why I'm looking at trying to get different with some SP2s. And I think Lance Lynn's ceiling, as stupid as this sounds, because obviously it's just 3 starts in, I think his ceiling is still higher than what Alex Cobb's is for cheaper.
I like Alex Cobb today. And by the way, I think he is upside as well. So I'm going to bring in a betting angle to this too. The over-under for strikeouts on Alex Cobb today is 4.5, and it's plus money on the over.
Ooh.
Strikeout numbers for Alex Cobb this year. He's generating a lot of strikeouts. 26.5% strikeout rate this year for Alex Cobb. That is the best mark of his career. He does have a 5.48 ERA, but the underlying numbers are really strong for Cobb. 2.33 expected ERA, 3.22 FIP. We were talking about some of the high BABIP for Lance Lynn this year. Well, Alex Cobb is a 378 BABIP and a 55.7 left on base percentage. The underlying numbers are really, really strong for Cobb. He's just been done in by some bad sequencing and some bad batting average on balls in play. But I mean, we're looking at career best strikeout numbers for him. His walk rate is down from his career average. This is stuff I care about way more than just the ERA. So I like Alex Cobb for DFS, but even more so, over 4.5 strikeouts at plus 110. How about that?
Yeah,
Does that interest you?
Yeah, that does a lot. Looking through some of his velocity, because again, I can't go through this on every single guy all the time in terms of like spin rate and everything down the line. It's really fun though when you get opportunities to look at, in zone swing percentage, barrel percentage for certain guys against certain spots or handedness. It's a numbers game, and looking at some of his velocity this year, he's up almost 2 miles per hour on his fastball velocity. It's kind of ridiculous when you think about Alex Cobb. He was generating more swings and misses before, but his stuff kind of shows that maybe he should be getting even more strikeouts than what he is. I mean, it's the highest K percentage of his career right now, 26.5%, but towards the tail end of last year, he was around 28%, 24.9% for the season. So yeah, up a percentage and a half. I don't completely hate it. I'm just, do we get 115 pitches or 120 pitches like I think Lance Lynn is in play for if he's going? I don't think so. God, I need some of the savings. I do not believe that a 5.48 ERA and a 1.46 whip is going to be the trend for Alex Cobb, but there's no doubt the problems have still kind of been there. Even though he's got a 2.34 expected ERA compared to that 5.48 ERA, I'm just still feeling the Lance Lynn side for cheaper. I think if I'm going down below it, I'm still going to pick Lynn.
Yeah, it's going to be Cobb for me. I understand, by the way, the points that you're making about Lance Lynn, and I'm not going to disagree. He looked better in his last start than he has in other ones. And the main reason he fell apart is they just left him in forever. I have no clue why they did.
That was weird.
He's coming off an injury. The velocity is clearly dipping. He's totally out of gas. He can't throw strikes. Like, all right, how about 4 more batters for him? And it just went really poorly. But at the same time, too, I'm looking at the overall numbers for Lance Lynn. I'm still skeptical. I wish that this was a team that he was going up against the Giants that just didn't consistently pinch hit, because that makes it hard for me to stack against him as well. But to answer the question that we got from my filler arc, my answer for under 8,400 is Alex Cobb. And both you and I are on the same page. Whether you want to side with me and go with Alex Cobb, whether you want to side with Eric and go with Lance Lynn, neither of us think the answer is Marco Gonzalez to that question.
That is 100% correct. Also, we just got some news from the news god himself, coming from the top rope here. We're looking at a delay on the field here for the Cleveland Guardians hosting the Yankees. Not looking good there in old Cleveland. So I'm going to take a look at some weather here. Let's go to Cleveland because, my friend Greg over there taught me how to use Google. You type in Cleveland weather. Yep. You type in Cleveland weather and then stuff pops up. It does not look good, by the way.
No. So it depends how long they're willing to wait this out. So it looks like we're going to get rain for about 2.5 hours or so. If they're willing to wait it out, there's a window to play it tonight, but this game looks pretty risky to me.
Oh boy. Here's the thing. It sucks because the one guy, the only thing you really want, well, actually, no, you just want everything in pinstripes today. Like I would want Yankees bats against Savali. I would want Garrett Cole. Like I want all of that. Just something to be monitoring for the next half hour. I'm just going to be paying attention to that for everybody. We haven't had like a major weather spot in quite some time. I think we've been running pretty good in that department, but definitely something to be monitoring.
Yeah, this is gonna be a tough one to figure because, like I said, it's clearly risky. It's not a for sure going to play, not a for sure going to get canceled. I view it as a coin flip. So that is something that we have to factor into our decision making.
Tyler, I just noticed take it away. Tyler,
no, do it.
Tyler,
do it.
Remove it now. Tyler.
Sir, I don't know what you're speaking about.
Tyler.
That's just
a
what your
great
golf bag looks like. That's just what your golf bag looks like. Oh my God, now it's on his shirt. He's wearing a Live Golf shirt. Oh my God. Let's see, he's going to come back. I hope he walks back. I was hoping he was going to walk back to us forward facing because then it would just be on his cock, the Live Golf thing. Welcome back, Eric.
Hi.
I like how he thinks that got rid of it. You know that wasn't actually on your golf bag, right?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. All right. So I guess
No, it was.
I guess
It was on the golf bag. It's not there now.
All right, Tyler, rig up something else for us while we're talking here. But so now that we're talking about the weather situation in Cleveland and your golf bag situation has gotten resolved, I know that there were some issues there. I assume it's a sponsorship issue because the contract you had with them fell apart. So I'm sure there's legal issues if you left that golf bag, because everybody knows Eric has a golf bag he bought that says Live Golf on it. What are we doing with this Yankees game now? We playing it? I assume the ownership is going to come down pretty significantly now. But starting with Garrett Cole, because we're on pitchers right now, how are you going to approach him in tournaments now?
I mean, I think the right thing to do, just thinking about it, I was thinking about it earlier, and then it looked like the weather was good. And then Adam, I was listening to him explain it. He's like, oh, I'm not worried about Cleveland. I'm like, shut up, Adam. You're never right. Let's see. I think the right way to do it is play Garrett Cole with Yankee stacks. Just have all 6 pieces of it. Just put it all together. And then do not have lineups that jump outside of that. Because, like, for me, if you're going to get a sub 5% Garrett Cole or a sub 10%, he's not going to be sub 5%. He'll still be around. Enough people have made lineups now that won't be getting that notification for half an hour. And that game, I'm assuming, it's the second one to lock. It locks in 35 minutes. So I think we should just play Cole with some Yankees bats, and you just kind of you send those lineups to the gods. You just basically say, I'm all right disintegrating these into thin air no matter what. So I think it's not too cost prohibitive to play Cole and Burns together with a couple of Yankees bats. Obviously, got to play some back half of the lineup guys along with it. But I think, Hicks at 2,700 gives you some relief. You get a 4,200 Donaldson. I mean, obviously, the guys you really want to get to are Judge and Stanton whenever they're going to be like 2%, 3%. They were already going to be pretty low owned. And I had some interest in the Yankees big time. I've talked about them how many times on this show, where they're just one of the top 2 offenses in baseball. Them and the Dodgers, 1-2, however you want to put it. But this is definitely going to be uncomfortable. I think that's the right way to do it, though. Have all of them grouped together. And then if it ends up going bye-bye, it goes bye-bye.
Yeah, it depends how risk averse you guys are individually. Also, if you're somebody who just plays single entry, plays one lineup, it would be hard for me to recommend Garrett Cole or the Yankees at that point. Would you agree with that assessment at least?
Say that again.
If somebody's a single entry player and they're just playing one lineup today, it would be hard for me to recommend the Yankees or Garrett Cole in that one.
Agreed. When you do that, you're basically saying that I am okay losing X amount of dollars instantly. Like you could lose that much money instantly. Like when you're playing 150. I think spots like this, when it's an offense like the Yankees, like if this were Oakland and Seattle, if this were the game that was weather concerns, you could just write off everything, because the range of outcomes for those offenses, I feel like, are pretty low compared to what it would be. Like I could be okay living without them. It's tough for me to really stomach. Like if the Yankees put up 10 runs today as a 150 player, as a 20 max player, and you didn't have a share or 2 of them with Cole packaged with the Yankees, I think you're probably doing it wrong.
So the other thing, I understand the logic of what you're saying, but I still like other pitchers better than Garrett Cole. So I don't think you have to group Garrett Cole with the Yankees. Like you could still make a Yankee stack and just go
right.
Burns.
I'm just saying you want to be playing as many of them as possible when you get that opportunity like this. just because it's very limiting. I mean, I'm just hand building one out just to kind of see what it looks like. Because we're on this show, 38.50. It's going to be really hard to play Judge, Stanton, and Cole together. Like that's just going to be a very thin lineup. You're going to be jumping down to Kennedy like everybody else. You're going to play Carson Kelly like everybody else. Like there's just a lot of really similar builds you'd still be running into that I probably want to kind of avoid in that regard. Let me see what it looks like with Lance Lynn quick, because that would be hilarious. Oh yeah, actually it does work out pretty well. All right. I have my Yankees stacked together that I'm going to put in a 3 max just for the hell of it. And we'll see if I need to change it out before lock, but I've got it put together just in case.
I really like the Yankees as a stack before this, which is upsetting because before we had these weather, they already looked like an under-owned offense. So if you're playing 20 lineups, I still think it's reasonable to have a Yankees stack or 2 in there. But if you're somebody who plays 1, 2, 3 lineups, I wouldn't go to the Yankees in that scenario. But this was actually my most rostered stack before, and I'm going to have to back down a little bit off them because Savali sucked this year. He's also a homer-prone pitcher, but the weather concern is real here. It's not an outright fade for me, but I'm going to lower my exposure to this spot, unfortunately, because I like getting to them. And then already as we were coming in, we liked Corbin Burnes ahead of Garrett Cole. That's even more so now.
I think the easiest thing to do is just take out every Cleveland Guardian, period, by the way. That's the other thing you should just say is like, you should have 0% Cleveland. Even Jose Ramirez, you can live without him today.
Yeah, so I mean, I wasn't playing Cleveland anyway, but now especially not playing Cleveland.
I'm just saying that if you're building in Cruncher, if you're building anywhere, make sure that you just take them all out.
Yeah, good point. I like that as well. Getting back to pitchers before we move to offenses, are there any other pitchers that you want to discuss for today's slate?
Emac, head out of the gutter. Pitchers. So Lance Lynn was kind of like where I really dropped down. I'm curious what you think about Tony Gonsolin today, because the guy has started. And I've said this from the get-go, like whenever he starts to get extended leash, he's going to be one of the best pitchers in baseball. It's a San Diego lineup that just got Machado back. That's kind of unfortunate, but we saw 94 pitches from Gonsolin. That's a season high against Atlanta, 5 2/3. He was moving along great, only 1 earned in that spot. The Ks aren't all that enticing, but basically if you have no Cole on the board now, and if you have Christian Javier, who I'm not sold on being a guy who should be as owned as what he is today, even though I love this pitcher, I absolutely love him. Coming off of 13 strikeouts, outlier performance against the Yankees, absolutely absurd stuff. Plus 115 pitches. I don't know. That's by far the most amount of pitches that he's thrown this season, by over 20. So there could be some fatigue. There's a number of ways against the Angels where this could possibly not work out to his favor. I'm willing to get away from a little bit of that. Is Gonsolin somebody who jumps up on our top pitchers tool, somebody that you have in your pool?
So I think for contrarian purposes, you can make a case that he's under-owned, but that is so much more money that I want to pay on DraftKings for Tony Gonsolin. And he's been really solid this year, but there isn't a real ceiling there for me at this price tag. Because you look at his recent starts, he did have the one where he put up 28 fantasy points against the Angels, but beyond that, he's pretty consistent, like that 16 to 22 fantasy point range, which is, solid. I think there's a lot of floor to him. I just don't realistically know what the ceiling is, especially against the Padres, who just got Manny Machado back.
So what are you going to do with Christian Javier?
I like him today. I'm just gonna get different at offense.
Okay. I get it. There's so many strikeouts at the Angels, but I just look at that pitch count from last time out. Maybe this is just overthinking it a little bit. He pitched on the 26th, same gap as David Peterson. David Peterson's getting turned around early here.
By the way.
Was it the 20? Why do I have 26th in my sheet?
I'm pretty sure it was the 25th.
I hope so. Let me just click on his DK portfolio. 25th. Okay, good. Because like Peterson is pitching a day earlier, which was something that I like went in and did by hand today. And I thought I had seen that it was the 26th as well. My whole day got screwed up by Rudy Gobert. Let's just be dead serious and honest about what happened. Rudy Gobert ruined my day. That French baguette just ruining my day. Whatever.
Yeah, all those. But by the way, French things I know: snails, the Eiffel Tower, I know
armpit
Paris,
hair.
I know baguettes. Oui. That's about it. That's all encompassing of my French knowledge.
Where I'm going to hang the poster of me winning 50K tonight.
Oh, that would be, and we could Photoshop Live Golf on it. Yeah, it's going to look nice. Anything else you want to talk about from pitchers? Or if not, we'll go and sum up some of these offenses.
I call them a baguette. Yeah, you know what a baguette is? After 12 hours of sitting around, it's a crusty piece of bread that doesn't move and isn't very mobile. That's Rudy Gobert after game 4 of a playoff series.
If you want access to all the great Stokastic Plus tools and to content for just about every single DFS sport out there, we have a Stokastic Plus Platinum Pass offer for you. If you're signing up for the first time, use the promo code MLB Live because that's going to get you 50% off your first month of Stokastic Plus Platinum. Stop guessing, start winning. Join Stokastic Plus today. Get access to stuff like the top pitchers tool, the top stacks tool, which is something that Eric and I always use to help build our lineups. And I'm about to refresh the top stacks tool as we go and we start to hash out some of our favorite teams to get to today. And I'm going to have to rerun my lineups because Yankees are a team that I'm going to have to downgrade now. But Eric, who is the number one team for you to get to today? All things considered, ownership, upside, what is the number one offense to target?
Minnesota Twins. And this is kind of, again, Minnesota on the brain. You look at the top stacks tool, and obviously it paints one picture where you see the negative leverage going towards Minnesota. You see Arizona, which is the top stack in terms of stack score, top stack potential, 15%. Colorado on the other side, 12.2%. And they're kind of negatively leveraged as well. But Minnesota, negative 5.5% leverage. If you go through the hitters individually, and there is power everywhere, if I just get to a ton of Alex Kirilloff at 5.5%, I'm different with my stack. He will be a part of every single Minnesota stack that I make today. I just truly do believe that he made a lot of amazing changes at AAA, had over a 1.4 OPS at that level, getting called back up to the majors, had a major strikeout problem, but his approach at the plate has been very improved. And he had an 0-for-4 outing against Shane Bieber. Guess what? A lot of people have 0-for-4 outings against Shane Bieber. We saw him go 3-for-4 against Cal Quantrill. His at-bats look really well-tempered, had just a completely different approach. He went yard in that spot. Connor Pilkington left on left. I don't really know what to make of that. But Spencer Watkins is so bad. And when I mean so bad, I do mean that I think he's probably the worst starting pitcher that has thrown more than 50 innings in baseball this season. Like, there is no chance that this guy would be on any team except for Baltimore. He has a 566 expected slugging. He's only missing bats, 11.2% K percentage. He's walking guys at a 10% rate. He has a 12-degree average launch angle. Oh, and then the weather in Minnesota is hot and humid. We're ready to rock, 80 miles an hour, wind blowing out to right field, which is where the Target Center is located, home of Rudy Gobert, the Stifle Tower. That is what's going to happen. We're going to see some lefty power go yonder way into the Target Center. The stadium will be abuzz with people who don't understand basketball. I get it. We're trying to win basketball games now. I love it. But guess what? The Minnesota Twins are going to go out and put an absolute shelling on Spencer Watkins. I know I don't want to speak in absolutes, but the range of outcomes is wide. And guess what? They could legitimately put up 8 or 9 on this guy today.
A little bit too much ownership for me, just the way I build my lineups. Whenever I see teams that are that negatively leveraged in the top stacks tool, I tend to get away from them. And then also, I'm playing the really chalky pitchers today. I can't be chalky at offense when I'm playing the chalk pitchers. That's just the way these things go. Because if I want to play the Twins offense and do it with Christian Javier and Corbin Burns, a lot of other people are going to be doing that. I can't make those kind of lineups. It's not how I play MLB DFS.
But look at Alex Kirilloff's ownership. He's sub 5%. At a number of spots, he's at 5.5%. If I put him in every single stack, why can't I get to a Raz 4.6%? Why can't I get to, like, the two guys who are just massively owned are Buxton and Correa? I'm still going to get to some of them. They're the two best hitters in the lineup. But if I get to more Kepler, which is what I'm planning on doing, he's at 11%. We've got, a number of these guys. Miranda at sub 10%, 2,500 gives you savings to get to as much Burns as you want. It's a team that I think, if you just find ways to get around some of the Buxton and Correa ownership, everything else is way more tempered off than it should be against Spencer Watkins.
Am I looking at an outdated ownership, or are you? Because that's not.
I'm looking at Fangraphs, or not Fangraphs. I'm looking at Fantasy Cruncher right now. I just hit refresh. Let me double check. Yeah, exact same numbers I just listed off. Buxton and Correa, 25.5%, and Carlos Correa, 21.8%. I don't know if this is free today, but if not, you're welcome. Here you go. Then Ryan Jeffers is getting 15.7% at 2,400. No thanks. I will pass. Jorge Polanco sitting at 15%. I get it. Just got back 3,900. He's only like plus 400 around the industry to hit a home run today. He's a decent enough piece to have in some stacks, has some utility there, sub 4K. But really the guys that I want to get to, Kepler, Miranda, Urshela, Kirilloff, and Araz, all of those guys, 11% or lower. Oh, come on. I'm just going to be 20% on those guys and live with the result.
Yeah. Personally, I just very rarely have individual hitters that I roster that often. So I can't get there for myself with my process how I build lineups, but there's clearly upside there. They're going up against Spencer Watkins, and there's a reason they're the second most popular offense over on DraftKings. It's a good spot for them. Like you said, Spencer Watkins has been awful this year. He's been one of the worst pitchers in baseball, and the field is reacting as such with the Minnesota Twins. They're projected for 19% ownership on FanDuel. So I know you said the ownership on DraftKings isn't problematic for you, but where it's even higher on FanDuel at 19.3%, does that change for you at all?
Not really.
All right. So you load up on the Minnesota Twins. The other chalk team to talk about today, the Arizona Diamondbacks, going up against another terrible pitcher in Antonio Senzatella. So minor quibbles here. I mean, we have some really, really shit pitchers today. Antonio Senzatella, Spencer Watkins, Aaron Savali, Glenn Otto. I think Senzatella is the worst of all these guys because Senzatella's really gotten his ass kicked this year. And also, last I looked at OddsShopper and some of our best bets, one of the best bets of the day was Antonio Senzatella under 2.5 strikeouts, which really goes to show how poorly he's pitched this year. 4.66 ERA, that individually is not totally awful, but a 5.85 expected ERA. 12.5% strikeout rate. If you're only striking out 12.5% of the hitters you face at Coors Field, it's going to be problematic. It's not the park to allow a lot of contact to. That is something Senzatella is doing. But once again, a lot of ownership going to Arizona. They're projected for right around 20% ownership on both DraftKings and then over on FanDuel, actually up to 23% now. Is Arizona a chalk stack you like getting to?
No, I'm not going to get to 5-mans of them. I'm going to get to individual hitters. I'm going to piece them around in lineups, but it's going to be hard for me to land on a lot of these 5-mans. So, I mean, everything I just said about Minnesota, where you can get to some individual hitters, you can find some ways around it. You can't really find ways around ownership over here for Arizona. Everybody is popular. Everybody is pulling. Even Geraldo Perdomo, 12.6% for Perdomo, dude. Shout out to the old school Perdomo of the pitching variety. But I mean, everybody is extremely popular on the Arizona side. You know, I'm assuming you're not going to be doing 5-mans. You and I rarely get to these super popular stacks. And again, I just look at the Minnesota ownership and I get where you see the negative leverage in the top stacks tool. There's just so many hitters that I think are coming in under-owned over there. Everybody on Arizona is over-owned. So if this team goes completely nuts, I'm probably going to be in trouble. The likelihood of Carson Kelly falling into lineups for me, Buddy Kennedy, as I'm finishing stuff up, they're 2,100 and 2,200 at Coors Field. Like, I'm going to get to pieces of them, but there's just no way I'm going to play 5-mans or 4-mans of them over on FanDuel. That's going to be how I get a little bit different on this slate.
Yeah, and you could play a chalk stack and you could differentiate it just by playing a lower owned pitcher. So if you're playing somebody who's really low owned a pitcher, that's going to make any stack contrarian. Or there could be individual hitters that are really low owned, or playing the back end of a lineup. That could also change the overall ownership of it. But I'm not playing any of the really popular offenses for this slate heavily. So I'm going to be light on the Arizona Diamondbacks, going to be light on the Minnesota Twins. It's not to say I don't think they're good spots for them. I just rather play the chalk at pitcher, and I don't want to play all of the chalk on this slate. So where am I going at offense then?
That's what I was going to say. What does it all mean, Pazu? I haven't had the chance to ask you because I'm normally hosting. You're normally analyst. We flip-flop on Fridays, Freaky Friday for those keeping track at home. But who's your single entry team of the day?
Yeah, so it was the Yankees, and I was going to be playing some of the back end of the Yankees.
They were my single entry team, and that's when it turned into all Minnesota.
Now I'm going to be siding with another New York team, but instead going with the New York Mets. And, you know, when it comes to the Mets, there are a couple of individually expensive batters in the lineup, but overall, there's salary savings to be found here. So the Mets lineup, we have Marte, Alonso, and Lindor are all expensive. Nobody else is. Nimmo's leading off at 4,400. We got McNeil at 4,200. Then you got Canas 3,300. Escobar's 3,300. McCann is 3,100. Nimmo's 4,400. Those are the DK prices. So once you get away from Marte, Alonso, Lindor, you've got cheap batters in here that you could use to really lower the cost of the lineup, and also ones that are not that popular. There's not a single hitter in the lineup overall that's projected for more than 10% ownership. And then also the guys at the back end of the order, all of them are right around 3% ownership or less. So I think this is a good contrarian stack to get to. In the builds I made, I didn't really have any issue making 5-man Mets stacks, even with Corbin Burns and Christian Javier as the pitchers. They don't have that much ownership. So I think this is a reasonable way to differentiate. against a pitcher in Glenn Otto, who has a 5.31 ERA this year and a 6.51 expected ERA. So I am landing on the Mets now, and I feel pretty good about it, and I'm still able to get the pitchers in I like.
I did something weird today, and I decided to play a little bit of cash, which I haven't done like all year long, but it was a way to play 5 Arizona batters and just kind of live cash. So there you go. But I like getting to Starling Marte for cash purposes. I've got him, Carlos Correa, Buxton. It's Burns, Javier, and a couple along 5 Arizona batters. So for those keeping track at home, those I didn't enter it in any tournaments because this is not a tournament lineup for me. And I would just rather not have 5-man anything Arizona in anything. But Starling Marte, the stolen base upside on Otto too. I mean, this guy is inept. So give me all the Marte you got.
Yeah. By the way, if you haven't done so already, the ownership warrants a refresh. It's changed quite a bit because the Yankees ownership has come way down due to the weather concerns.
I'm gonna have to get to some now.
I mean, I'm
already going to get to a little bit.
I'm slightly overweight. So they're very low owned. They're only picking up 3% ownership right now on DraftKings in the newest run. On FanDuel, they are at, refreshing this page as well.
Did I say 5%. Live cash? Did I seriously say that?
Well, yeah, it's just on your mind. That's what you... Listen, Eric, it's subliminal. You know you love it.
I don't.
Yeah, you do. It's okay.
I don't like today.
It's been a tough one for you. I know. So it's because I saw Eric drinking at the start of the show, and at first I feel bad because I'm like, oh no, I've driven Eric to alcoholism, and now there's other excuses because now it's like, was it me? Not solely. We could blame Live Golf now. We could blame Rudy Gobert, the Timberwolves front office.
My internet went out yesterday. I couldn't even play on DraftKings yesterday.
Heads are falling
I don't have
off.
my dog until Saturday.
There's things other than me that we could blame Eric becoming an alcoholic on.
Does your wife know you act like this, Eric? Shut up, Carlos Manzo. I like you, actually. I'm not going to time you out. No, I am. I'm going to time him out. There we go.
It's probably mostly me, but there's other factors as well.
I mean, Spags, somebody said earlier, I picked up on it. They're like, Eric survived Spags in order to get Greg Ehrenberg. Like that's a tough draw in terms of the making fun of Eric spectrum. You go from like really aggressively mean to really, 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 really aggressively outwardly mean.
It's not mean. I really think of myself more of as a truth teller, to be honest. I'm just sharing facts with the people about your Live Golf contract situation and everything else that goes on. You're like you could say it's trash talk. You could say it's mean. I just think it's the truth.
Whatever. Just do what you guys want today. That's my analysis. Just play baseball lineups and then win money. And then we move on with our day. This is going to be the day though that I win 50K. Like I just can feel it. I can feel it today.
I hope so. What's there's the I hope so meme on Twitter. It'd be a good time to drop the one right now, but we have to get Tyler.
I did it in my mind. I did it in my mind. It was adorable. It's good.
All right. So let's talk about some other low-owned offenses before we get into lock here. And the one that I like the most is the Mets. They are projected to be under-owned today on both DraftKings and FanDuel. I also think they're underpriced once we get past the top end guys, so they're not hard to stack up with pitchers. What is your favorite contrarian stack of the slate, Eric?
I talked about Oakland a little bit earlier. That's definitely going to be one of them. But I'm curious because what do you think about the Texas Rangers against David Peterson? You already brought it up, and obviously I don't want a bullpen game or anything, but I might be a little bit distracted on a mound. I might not be thinking clearly if I'm having my child about to be born in like within the hours. Just feels like a decent enough spot to get to some Texas Rangers, especially at the top of that lineup. The wind's blowing out nearly 15 miles an hour. It's 85 degrees. You talked about how hot and humid it is there in Jersey. It is pretty good hitting weather there for the Mets. And you get the top of that order, Simeon, Seager, Adolis Garcia, Jonah Heim for catcher purposes. All these guys are sub 3% in a great hitting environment. You get Mitch Garver. You can play alongside Heim for FanDuel purposes. You have to pick one of the two for DK. You get Nate Lau. You get even Tavares there at the bottom end. He's nothing, 105 ISO, but a 318 WOBA. I just feel like I'm going to get to a lot more Texas Rangers than the field. Are they a team you're getting to at all?
Yeah, so I do have interest in the Texas Rangers, and
Love it.
Corey, we found your super chat. So as far as the Texas Rangers go, I mentioned some of the concerns I have with David Peterson, and I have 2 bets on the Texas Rangers today. I have the game total over 9 runs, the total for the game, and then I have the Rangers over 1.5 runs in the first 5 innings. I bet it at -110. Last I looked, it was -150. So I feel really good about the closing line value I got on that. But the same reasons that I would want to get to the Texas Rangers today from a betting perspective is the same reason I want to get to them from a DFS perspective, which is they were priced to face Chris Bassett, who's been really solid this year. And it's not to say that David Peterson hasn't been, but he doesn't have a track record of being all that great. We've also got these concerns where he's pitching on very late notice. His wife is also apparently about to go into labor. We don't know if he's going to go all that deep into the game. So there's also enough concerns for me with the Peterson, the Mets pitching angle side of the game that I think there's some upside here in the Texas Rangers. We have them as being very positively leveraged right now, just about 1% ownership with 4% chance to be a top stack. So I think that's a sensible, very low owned and cheap offense to get to.
I love that. Did we agree on something today other than Corbin Burns? That was beautiful. I'm glad we had that moment at least.
Yeah, well, we've agreed on a lot today.
Okay. Lance Lynn, no. Minnesota stacking, no. Like the major points of the slate for me. Outside of Corbin Burns, we're both just playing a ton of him.
We have a super chat from Corey Randall to answer before lock here. Thoughts on if the Yankees game plays? All the forecast I see is showing rain until like 10 p.m. Also thoughts on a 5-man Detroit stack. So we've talked about the Yankees part of that. And by the way, apologies, Corey. I didn't see your super chat for it. That's my fault. But as for the Yankees game, is it going to, I think it's 50-50 whether it plays. I would be doing you a disservice if I confidently said one way or another it's going to play or not play. And then thoughts on a 5-man Detroit stack today. So the Detroit Tigers going up against Brad Keller. They're actually the number 1 positively leveraged team that we have in our top stack school, mostly because of the pricing. Their odds of being the number 1 value stack on the slate is 21%. And I'm assuming he has to 5-man stack. So I'm assuming this is a DraftKings question. So yeah, I think there's reason to get to them. Brad Keller's underwhelmed this year. The Tigers don't have a particularly good offense, but if you make a 5-man Tiger stack, you play whoever the hell else you want with them. They're low owned. They present good value. So I do think it's sensible in tournaments.
I agree. Yeah, I'm not. They're not going to succeed a lot of the time, but they're going to succeed more times than not compared to what the field thinks they are. So that's what matters. I have a couple shares. I can't say that I'm like gung ho about it, but I totally get it.
And who is this guy in chat? All right, never mind that aside. Yeah. So the official word on the Yankees game, the Yankees game is in a rain delay. So it's not going to start on time. There's expected to be rain for the next 3 hours or so. So here's what could happen. They could wait out those 3 hours and then there's a window to play. Or what they could do is they could just say, hey, screw it. Bad weather. We don't want to wait around. So we are going to just call the game, which is also a possibility. I think it's a coin flip whether it plays or not. There's no other games that are concerning for me. There's some games with rain in the forecast, but nothing I think should be canceled. Is there anything else that really stands out to you as problematic?
No, I took everything out of my pool. I have my couple stacks that are just Garrett Cole with some Yankees. Exactly what I said I was going to do. That's what I'm going to do. And then, it's like 5% of my lineups that are sacrificed to the gods, but they could be even lower owned than that. Like, that's the thing. They could be 2% in this kind of a spot. I do think people probably hit eject on Garrett Cole just based on what's happened to our projections throughout the show. If you just keep refreshing, what do we have Garrett Cole at now? He's like 6.2. So 8.7%. He could be even lower than that. If you get a game that starts clean, starting at like 9 p.m. that time, 9:30, you could be sitting on the nuts.
Very possibly. Risky game. We don't know exactly how that's going to go. Today's show is sponsored by Odd Shopper. So I want to close out the show by just going over our favorite bets of the day. I already gave out mine. Alex Cobb over 4.5 strikeouts. We're getting plus money on that number. Eric, have you had a time to pull up Odd Shopper and look for any bets you like?
Yeah. So, I do my prize picks video every single day, and I think that there's some amazing home run lines. I talk through the math of why some of these home run bets are so advantageous over on prize picks. God forbid, they stop allowing you to be able to correlate with some of these home run picks, but you can get it like a Mike Trout alongside of Byron Buxton, plus 180, the prevailing number for Trout, plus 230. And if you play the over with their total bases, you're basically getting 1.5 times better payout over on Prize Picks playing those 4 together than you do just betting the parlay of the 2 in terms of home runs together at any sports book. So Prize Picks, use promo code Osmo, sign up over there. Use that to your advantage now. Earlier in the day, I was on the under for Corbin Burns. He was at 8.5 strikeouts, which was just basically like an emotional hedge because he could still end up as the highest scoring pitcher and put up 7 or 8 strikeouts. But I ended up kind of discretion is the better part of valor, as one would say. So I ended up kind of just being a pass. I went completely to the home run side of things. As it stands right now, there's nothing that's all that enticing for me. Stanton earlier had decent enough marks, but now I just don't even want to put anything out there on that game whatsoever. But my home run call for the day, I guess I can kind of round it out with that. I'm just going Alex Kirilloff. This guy is going to start raking in the bigs so soon. He's batting 7th for the Minnesota Twins. There's just so much power in that bat. I would bet it. I would do anything that I possibly could on a guy who just was murdering baseballs high and far in AAA. It's going to carry over sooner rather than later.
One more for the road, and then we're going to call it out. We're going to call it quits for the day. And by the way, before we leave, guys, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and I hope you guys have a great holiday weekend. David Peralta's plus 430 to homer today in Coors Field against Antonio Senzatella. That is of interest to me. So David Peralta, that is the hottest dong pick of the day. Peralta plus 430 to homer. That's what we're going to close with. Guys, thank you very much for watching. One more time, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. It goes a long way. We really appreciate it. Also, Eric, thank you for being a good sport. I hope you also have a mediocre holiday weekend.
Thanks,
guys,
bud.
catch you later.